Did you warn Prime Minister Netanyahu against taking some sort of actions that could disrupt the talks there in a phone call last week?
Well, I'd like to be honest. Yes, I did. Next question, please.
So a kind of shocking story from Axios yesterday emerged that suggested that President Trump had cautioned Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in a phone call last week not to take any action that could jeopardize negotiations between the United States and Iran on a new nuclear deal. Okay, so first of all, I have a question. Israel is not involved in those negotiations. So why should Israel hold off? Real question.
What's going on, everybody? Thank you for being here. I'm live, and I want to talk about and react to a few clips from Ben Shapiro, what Mark Levin said. They're both really upset with Donald Trump for essentially telling Netanyahu to relax for a little bit while he talks to Iran. Then I want to talk about Piers Morgan was accused of blood libel by, I believe, the ambassador to Israel that's in the UK. He had a little bit of debate with that person. So we're going to look at that, and I'm grateful that you're here. I have a lot to say about it. So Dream Rare podcast starts now, a rare live edition. Thanks for being here.
It's the Dream Rare podcast. Welcome to the show. The way to get the news at the desk or on the road. Let's go. God is great and success in our control. The world is crazy, but we get better from obstacles. Yeah.
What's going on YouTube? What's going on Facebook? What's going on Rumble? What's going on Apple, Spotify, and anybody else watching this somehow from somewhere else where streaming is available? Thanks for being here. Give me a thumbs up in the chat if everything sounds good. Give me a thumbs up on the video for the algorithm, and then I'm going to get into it. I got a lot of clips to play, and I have a lot to say about this because it's getting to the point now where, and I've told people this for years, and it seems like it's happening to Trump. It doesn't matter how much you do for Mark Levin, Ben Shapiro, and Israel. It just seems like it's never enough. And even somebody like Donald Trump, who has basically bent over backwards, he has pushed essentially hate speech laws in the United States of America. He's currently strong-arming liberal universities to adopt an international definition of anti-Semitism that is ridiculous and goes against our U.S. Constitution. He's doing so much for Israel. He's given them so much aid. He's given them so much support. He's given them the green light on literally almost everything. But if you don't constantly 24/7 do everything that Ben Shapiro wants you to do on this topic, then it seems like any sort of, using your leverage as the United States president to do something different than they want, then people start getting really upset at you. So let's listen to these clips. And then the one I'm going to play later of Piers Morgan being accused of blood libel is fascinating because for months, Piers Morgan was accusing people of all sorts of names if they had alternate opinions to his on Israel. But now the exact thing that he was doing to others is now happening to him. And I find it fascinating. This is all just quite interesting stuff. Let's get into the clips of Ben Shapiro reacting to this clip of Trump. I'll play it again real quick for those who just came in.
Back on Iran, did you warn Prime Minister Netanyahu against taking some sort of actions that could disrupt the talks there in a phone call last week?
Well, I'd like to be honest. Yes, I did. Next question.
So they asked him, did you tell Netanyahu essentially don't do anything that's going to mess up the talks between the United States and Iran? And Trump said, yeah, I did do that. And Ben apparently found out about that or heard about it before it came out. And this is his reaction because, someone who is like Ben and others who really like Israel, you can't say they like Israel because that's anti-Semitism. You're not allowed to say a U.S. citizen like Mark Levin or Ben Shapiro have dual loyalty to Israel. That's that classic anti-Semitic trope that is just so hateful that they need to pass it into legislation in almost every U.S. state, and they need to strong-arm schools to make sure they adopt that definition of anti-Semitism. You're not allowed to say that, but of course, everybody knows Ben Shapiro likes Israel, but he's such a special boy that he needs special boy laws and special boy rules, and he likes to accuse everybody of hate whenever, they notice that he seems to have such an affinity to Israel that it almost seems like it equals or supersedes his affinity of the United States of America. So even though Trump is pro-Israel, him telling Netanyahu to chill out for a few days while they negotiate with Iran, this is Ben Shapiro's reaction.
So a kind of shocking story from Axios yesterday emerged that suggested that President Trump had cautioned Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in a phone call last week not to take any action that could jeopardize negotiations between the United States and Iran on a new nuclear deal. Okay, so first of all, I have a question. Israel is not involved in those negotiations. So why should Israel hold off? Real question.
Okay, I got a real answer to your real question. I'm not saying they have to or should. I'm not saying Israel has to listen to Donald Trump, but let's think about why should Israel listen to Donald Trump to chill for a few days when Trump's negotiating with Iran, since Ben Shapiro says, Israel's its own country and the United States is its own country. I'm not saying, once again, they have to, but here's just some hypotheticals for Ben, who just can't fathom why Trump would ask them to do that or why it applies to them. Who gives Israel billions of dollars of financial aid every year? Do the United States taxpayers give more money to Israel than they do any other country over the last 40, 50, 60 years? Essentially, we just dole out money to them all the time. It's like if you even suggest it should stop, you're an anti-Semite. They just are entitled to your taxpayer money, apparently. And then, it's hate speech if you even say otherwise. So every year, billions of dollars, billions of dollars, billions of dollars, billions of dollars. I'm not saying they have to listen to us, but if a country has given you, I believe, over hundreds of billions of dollars in foreign aid, maybe if the president who supports you 99.999% of the time says, hey, I support you, but just can you relax for a day or two, possibly, maybe that's a reason. I don't know. Maybe because Trump has been a strong ally, maybe because Trump has given you money, maybe because Trump has essentially been lobbied by Miriam Adelson and has done a lot of stuff for Israel. He's moved the embassy. He has claimed the Golan Heights, or helped Israel claim the Golan Heights to some extent. Trump has passed anti-Semitism, IHRA, International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, hate speech rules into America against our U.S. Constitution. He's been so pro-Israel at the expense of the United States, our taxpayer dollars, our First Amendment, our way of life. So this is just a hypothetical. Once again, Israel, they don't have to listen to Trump, and they probably won't. I'm shocked that Trump even disagrees with them. This is, if it's not theater, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But let's just say Trump did, for the first time in a long time, be like, hey, just can you chill for a few days? I don't know, maybe just out of loyalty or out of thanks that we've given you so much money and helped you in so many ways. Maybe it would be respectful to a president that has literally probably supported Israel more than any president in a long time. Just a hypothetical for Ben. Why Israel's a different country? Okay, if you're a different country, why don't you stop taking taxpayer money every year? No, don't want to do that. If you're a different country, why do we have hate speech laws in America that are so extreme that you're actually allowed to criticize America more than Israel? Incoming people who are seeking green cards in the country, their social medias are going to be scrutinized, and people like Marco Rubio, who's been lobbied by the Adelson family for years, and Trump even used to point that out before Trump himself got lobbied by that family. People like Marco Rubio, they're searching people's social media for anti-Semitism, aka, let's just say you're an incoming straight A's, great person, not violent at all, and you just tweet, Ben Shapiro has loyalty to Israel. Ben Shapiro is more loyal to Israel than America. That's a hypothetical. Marco Rubio will most likely look at your social media and say, oh, that's anti-Semitism. This person can't be a United States citizen now. So in order to be a citizen in America, it's almost like they're searching your social media to find out if you criticize Israel more than America. It's all really weird, but just for Ben, throwing out a few hypotheticals, why should they potentially care what Trump has to say about them in Iran, since we're separate countries? Because in America, we're basically joined at the hip, and pretty much all of our presidents and politicians, besides Thomas Massey, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and a few others, they literally worship you to a psychotic extent. No gratefulness whatsoever, no appreciation for everything Trump's done for Israel. And also with Ben, this is just to ask my audience, because of course it's hate speech to say the truth, but does Ben talk, and everyone, I'm not trying to accuse people of anything, because everyone's allowed to care about Russia or Ukraine. As an American citizen, you should be allowed to have a foreign policy, and Ben doesn't have to agree with me. But I'm just asking you, does Ben sound like somebody when he talks about this stuff or anything that cares about America more than Israel, or Israel more than America? Does he sound like an American citizen weighing in on this stuff, or does he sound like a PR team for that country, in the sense of it's oh, why should they listen to us? It's yeah, sure, they don't have to, but I could think of a few reasons why it might be thoughtful and respectful. But once again, I've noticed this, and I'll get into it a little later. It doesn't matter how much you do for them. You could be pro-Israel. You could say, Israel's awesome. I love all Israelis. They're the greatest people in the world. I support them. I want to give them financial aid. I want to infringe on my constitutional rights in order to pass hate speech laws for them. You could say all that, but then you come out and you just say, hey, I agree with you 99.99% of the time, right? You're awesome. You're the greatest. You're amazing. You need special speech laws. We need to forfeit our free speech for you, whatever. But maybe with your foreign policy, like maybe try to kill less women and children, just like a little bit. Oh, that's blood libel. Oh, that's anti-Semitic. It doesn't matter how much you give to them. Doesn't matter how much you bend over backwards for them. In the end, they're going to call you an anti-Semitic, or they're going to call you anti-Semitic or an anti-Semite. They're going to accuse you of blood libel. And just like Donald Trump, who's bent over backwards for them for the last 8 years, they're going to turn on you just like Mark Levin and Ben Shapiro are, because it's just never enough. The fact that Trump has the gall to ask them to cooperate with us for a few days. How dare, who does he think he is? Does he think he's the president of the United States? What the heck? But I've learned that the hard way, because I was always like, yeah, Israel's awesome and this and that. But, you know, I like free speech and I don't agree with the anti-Semitism hate speech laws. For saying that, I got blacklisted 5 years ago, and all these sneaky Ben Shapiro types behind scenes, not him specifically, but they were calling me far right. They were telling people not to interview me. There's been a massive blacklist on my name for years because I had the gall to say the First Amendment doesn't say that we should have special boy hate speech laws for Ben Shapiro, Dave Rubin, and Mark Levin. If you even say that, they run behind the scenes, some people, and start trying to cut you out of situations. And Donald Trump, once again, has spent his whole political career doing everything he possibly can for Israel, but just being like, hey, do you guys mind for like a few days to cooperate with us and just, chill out for a little bit while we try to negotiate with Iran? Ben Shapiro's ticked off. Do you know why? Because Ben Shapiro has wanted war with Iran for decades, and he wants to use, I believe, the United States, the power of the United States to do it for Israel. So the thought that a United States president actually cares about United States citizens and our agenda and what might benefit us over just sacrificing the United States in every single way for that country, it's just, Ben is just seething. He's seething. And I'm going to play more clips, but clearly I have a lot to say. When Elon Musk was getting attacked by the ADL, and when they were calling Elon Musk anti-Semitic, and Elon Musk came on Twitter and he said, I noticed that there's certain Jewish organizations that push anti-white hatred. That's along the lines of what Elon Musk said. He basically went on some sort of apology tour. He had to fly overseas, or he did fly overseas, and he's meeting with a bunch of people of that community, and Ben Shapiro's there. It's like the richest man in the world tells the truth about a topic that Ben Shapiro doesn't want him to tell the truth about, and he has to fly to a foreign country on an apology tour and meet with Ben Shapiro and a bunch of leaders. Like, who is Ben Shapiro that Elon Musk has to bow down to him in a foreign country for the crime of noticing that, that sometimes Jewish organizations push hatred of other races? Like, is that not possible? We're not allowed to talk about it. You're allowed to say that white people could be racist against black people. You could say that white people are being anti-Semitic, but you're not allowed to say that Jewish organizations do things. You're not allowed to say, and they'll say you're racist in America if you're like, yeah, white people can be rude to black people, but also black people could be rude to white people. Oh no, you're not allowed to say that either, right? That's racist. It's like we live in this double standard society where we're all supposed to just sit here and act stupid. Like, no, there's no organization, Ben Shapiro, of your ethnicity that push the hatred of Europeans or other races. No, that's not possible. It's only possible one way, right? And I'll say this again, and I'll say it with my full chest because it's the truth. I've noticed this the hard way, because as somebody that isn't hateful, as somebody that's really thoughtful and respectful and likes, something about every culture, every religion, I noticed that when people perceive you of, even if you're not, if they perceive you of being hateful in any way towards that ilk, race, religion, country, whatever, they call you an anti-Semite. If you notice that they're being hateful towards you, it's also called anti-Semitism, because it's anti-Semitism that you even notice that it's happening. It's anti-Semitism that you even dare to say that it's happening. So there is no word, just like with racism. It's like when black people or other minorities, quote unquote minorities, I don't even think that's a real word, but that's what they say to classify people. It depends where you're, actually getting the statistics from. Because if you go on a worldwide level, it's like there's other minority groups, but it's like if they think you're being hateful to them, they'll call you racist. And if you think they're being hateful to you, it's still called racist because you even notice. It's the same thing with anti-Semitism. It's like like Elon Musk noticed it one time and basically flew to a foreign country to meet with Ben Shapiro and a bunch of Ben Shapiro-esque people. It's like, who is Ben Shapiro that Elon Musk has to fly to a foreign country to meet with him to save face with their community? Something weird's going on. Everybody notices it, and the more that everybody notices it, the more hate speech laws we're going to get, and the more politicians are going to try to wrangle up social media the same they did during COVID-19, because God forbid people have an opinion about lockdowns or masks or vaccines, you need to be censored off the face of the internet. Now with Marco Rubio and Republicans, it's like, God forbid any incoming visa holder or green card or student criticizes Israel, you're not allowed in the country. You're better off criticizing America, because that's what the United States of America does. But once again, with all of that, it's just not enough for Ben Shapiro and Mark Levin. It's not enough. Trump needs to do more. How dare him, go with this isolationist strategy, which he's not even doing. He's funded every ounce of their war. He just asked them to relax for a few days while he talks to Iran. But God forbid Trump does that. Silly Trump. Who does he think he is?
Israel is the country most under threat from Iran, not the United States. Okay, so if we were going to take the full scale J.D. Vance isolationist realist position, shouldn't the United States just sort of wash its hands and walk away and say whatever happens, happens? But I notice that's not what's happening. Instead, these so-called restrainers inside the administration, they're not attempting to restrain the United States, which is already restrained. I promise you, my 100% certitude is that President Trump is not going to authorize a bombing raid on the Iranian nuclear facilities. Whether or not we should, I don't think it's going to happen. Okay.
A few things to unpack there. One, Ben knows that Trump doesn't want Israel to bomb the nuclear facilities, and Trump isn't going to bomb them. And Ben seems a little ticked off about that. Darn it. But in general, he starts talking about, why would America be trying to intervene with what Israel's doing? Wouldn't they just get out of the way and let Israel do whatever they want? Here's the thing, and I think every group, I don't know how to say this. I'll try to really baby it, because I know it's a very sensitive topic, and I'm not being rude or unthoughtful. I'm just trying to get through to people who don't understand, because pretty much everybody understands this except for Republican evangelical boomers over the age of 50 and 60. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful. Those are the statistics. They've done a recent poll. Every age group of Democrat and Republicans is starting to figure out what's going on, except for that age group. And it's okay, even if I'm just going to use a hypothetical. You're pro-Israel. Let's just say you live in Israel. You don't live in Israel. You're a Christian. You're Jewish. You're whatever. It doesn't matter. Whoever you are, if you really, really support Israel, is there any room on the pro-Israel side to have any sort of restraint whatsoever? I've just told you the answer. In my opinion, it's no. You have to just be let them do whatever they want. Don't say anything about it, or else you're on the other side. That's just how it is. I've noticed this, and they're even doing it to Donald Trump now, which is crazy. So it's with the United States military, we have a certain standard, right? And I understand every country is different, but if the United States military did what the Israeli military did, it would be front page news all the time. There would have to be people stepping down. There would have to be a massive press conference about it, because the United States military, I'm not saying we're perfect. We're absolutely not. And we funded proxy wars all over the world. I'm not acting holier than thou as a country, but we do have a certain standard to what we do with our military practices. When it comes to what's going on in Ukraine and Israel, I'm not saying they're the only ones, obviously. And I'm not even saying it's the worst thing I've ever seen. I'm just being honest. It's Ukraine is committing war crimes and posting them on Twitter, things that no one else is really doing. And it's yeah, I understand that Putin's doing messed up stuff too, but Ukraine is just way too comfortable doing that. And we're not allowed to even talk about it. And we just got to keep giving them money. It's okay, you go to Israel, like I pointed out in my last video, one of the people that I really respect in journalism and media, there's not many, but one that I do like, and I believe that he does a good job, is Trey Yingst. He's a American journalist. I think he's Jewish. He's lived in Israel. He's traveled to Palestine. The guy's been everywhere. He's a beast. He's at the front lines. He's been doing it for a long time. Trey Yingst is a good guy. Even Trey Yingst, even though he's pro-Israel, even though he's American, even though he's probably, he's very well loved and respected in Israel, or at least he used to be before he started reporting this. Even he's he works for Fox News, which is a super pro-Zionist organization. And he's dude, they just killed 9 children that are doctors' children that have nothing to do with Hamas. And he would know, because he's been over there for decades interviewing both sides. He knows who is and who isn't Hamas. He will be they did this, they used human shields. He's not just a liberal, and he's not just a Dan Bilzerian. And I'm no disrespect to Dan. I'm just saying Dan is way more outspoken and critical of Israel. That's not who Trey Yingst is. He's just a frontlines reporter. And he's they just killed 9 children that have nothing to do with Hamas. If you say that to a Fox News boomer brain person who's consuming Zionist media for the last 40 years, they look at you and say, oh no, those kids were doing something. And you're like, no, that they weren't though. So what I'm trying to say is, like, when Ben says, why would America be doing this? Maybe I can't speak for, JD Vance and Donald Trump and Stephen Witkoff, but maybe almost everyone on the planet besides ultra Zionists realize what they're doing is insane. Like, everybody notices it. It's like, yeah, you can win the war. You could fight the terrorists. We understand that you're going to get some civilians, but like, do we have to agree with everything you're doing? I'm sure Donald Trump, JD Vance, and everybody, even though they're ultra Zionists, they're probably looking at what Israel's doing and they're like, dude, like, I know we have to support this because we're lobbied, and I know we have to support this because this is our political party essentially. But it seems like even they're like, all right, this is like even a little too far for us. And even Trump, it's like, can you relax for a few days? Like, Trump is out there trying to negotiate and they're just slaughtering children. And even Fox News reporters, like, I don't go to liberals and I don't go to Al Jazeera and Qatar funded stuff. I don't go to that for news. Like, I listen to Trey Yingst because I know he calls it like he sees it. If he's even reporting that these children had nothing to do with Hamas, it's probably true. Like, the guy him and Bill Malugin seem like pretty straight shooters for Fox News. I'm sure Trump sees this news reporting too, and JD Vance, and they're like, dude, like, we want to support you in the war, but at a certain point, if we're going to fund this, like, you got to work with us. Like, we're giving you weapons, we're giving you money. We know it's your war. We know it affects you more than America, but like, can you not do that for 3 or 4 days? Because it's going to make peace talks impossible. And, I'm not trying to just blame one side or blame Ben Shapiro or anything, but when you notice, like, with our allies in Israel and Ukraine, and God bless everybody. If you disagree with me, I understand. But like, I don't think Zelensky wants peace. I think anytime Trump gets close to peace with Ukraine and Russia, the deep state, the neocons, and people like Zelensky, they're doing everything possible to make it impossible for peace because they don't want peace. If peace comes in Ukraine, Ukraine has an election, Zelensky loses power. The longer he could drag this out, the more he's in power. I'm not saying that's the only reason. I'm not saying Ukraine has nothing to fight for, but I personally, with all the evidence that I have, all the information, all the studying that I've done, I don't think Ukraine wants peace. And it's the same thing with Israel. Before this war really ramped up, right? I'm talking about 5, 6, 7 years ago. You could probably find clips if you look hard enough of me saying this 6, 7 years ago. I don't talk about Israel and Palestine that much because it's a harsh topic and it's very controversial. Not that I'm afraid of controversy, but in times of more peace, it's not like a topic I talk about all the time. I've mentioned years ago, I said, I think Israel wants all that land, like before October 7th. I said, I think Israel's going to take that land eventually. They want it. They take it. They want the people gone. How did I know that years ago? Am I a prophet? Did I, like, everybody that I talk to that believes the media, they'll be like, no, this is happening because of that day. And now we have to kill them all and take their land. That's why we have to do it. It's possible. It's possible that that's why they think. But did I just knew 6 years ago? I just happened to know, like, yeah, they're eventually going to do that. How did I know? Am I a genius? Like, I know because I read, I research, and the more you listen and the more you learn, that land was going to be taken at one point. Anyway, there was a plan to do it. That just gave them the justification. And even with the justification to do it after that horrific event, it's like they have to do what they're doing now. Not everyone acts that way. And it's like same with like Ukraine. The US military is funding a military that is doing things that they probably wouldn't do, or at least that it would be under massive scrutiny in the United States because we have a certain standard where it's like, we probably shouldn't do that. Yet when other countries do it, we're expected to just fund it and have no say and be like, yeah, that's totally normal. That's what I'm guessing is going on. And that's why I think that Mark Levin and Ben Shapiro are so upset, is because even Trump, even JD Vance, even Steve Witkoff, even the United States government, who is absolutely funding, supporting, and pretty much letting the Zionist movement do whatever, even I believe they're starting to be like, okay, like, yes, we want you to win. Yes, we've stayed silent while you've killed 30,000 civilians. Yes, we've let you do that and we've covered for you. But like, can you chill like a little bit? And what I found out, even if you support 99.9% of what they're doing, the thought that you would say just relax a little bit, they, like, I'm not going to say everybody, but they hate that. So Trump is an example of that, and they're like, I don't know where this is coming from. It's weird because almost everybody outside of like evangelicals over 50 who are brainwashed by Fox News, Everyone else understands except for you. I wonder what the disconnect is there. And at a certain point with Ben Shapiro, if there's a crossroads, and I'm not saying you can't criticize the US government. I'm not saying that Ben Shapiro has no right to disagree with Trump. I do all the time as well, and people get mad at me too. So Ben has every right as a US citizen to say whatever he wants, to support whatever he wants, to be as disagreeing with me as whatever he wants. But if push came to shove and the United States and Israel had a different thing that they both wanted, right? For the nation. And it's like, this is best for the United States. This is best for Israel. As a United States citizen, even though I wish Israel the best, I'm a United States citizen, right? This is the country that I am a part of, right? I have more loyalty to US than to Israel. No disrespect to Israel. Why would I have more loyalty to France or Sudan? Like, I like United States. If there's that fork in the road, I'm going United States. JD Vance will probably go United States. Trump, even though he plays both sides, he'll eventually, hopefully, you would think the United States, because he's the United States president. And when that fork in the road happens, and if it is happening now, my question to Ben Shapiro is, do you have more loyalty to the US or do you have more loyalty to Israel? Do you care about this country in whole, or do you look at this country as a group of not yous and Israel as a nation of you? And if that's the case, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful or rude, and I'm not, but like, why not go there? You know, and I'm not being rude. I'm not being hateful. I'm not saying he has to, but it's like, we all kind of know that that's the situation. It's like, I believe that Ben has more loyalty to them. I know that you're not supposed to say that. I know they're passing hate speech laws against it, but I have the First Amendment, and I believe that to be true. So it's like, you know, this guy's always going to get mad at this sort of stuff, because I believe for the last 10, 20 years, if you read Ben Shapiro's work, if you listen to Ben Shapiro enough about how he started in politics, his start in politics didn't come from him caring about the United States. He said on the Nelk Boys podcast, he got into politics because of Israel. Like, that was his end in politics. That's always been his passion. And I think as a U.S. citizen, Ben Shapiro is looking for every way to leverage the United States money, to leverage the United States media, to leverage the United States military, and to leverage the United States political atmosphere to do what's good for that country, even if it comes at the cost of us. I know you're not supposed to say that, but I believe it to be true. And I've followed Ben Shapiro for years upon decades now, and that's always been his shtick forever. He's always had bad opinions. He's always attacked people like Ron Paul. He called Ron Paul all sorts of names because Ron Paul came out and started speaking the truth about the Federal Reserve, about the wars. And Ben Shapiro has wanted this war with Iran for decades. And it's getting to the fork in the road where even though JD Vance and Donald Trump usually work for the donors, usually do whatever Israel wants, they're starting to get to a point where they're like, you know what? What if I only did 99% of what you want? What if I only did 98% of what you're not? Well, not 100%. And this is the response they're going to get. And sadly, everyone will figure this out at some point, because it doesn't matter if you're Trump, doesn't matter if you're Piers Morgan, everything that you accused other people of will come back to you, because this is what happens. And I'm going to get to that Piers Morgan clip in a second because it's interesting, but let's get through this Ben Shapiro one.
That's just the reality. So why is the restrainer team inside the Trump administration trying to stop Israel from doing that thing? Why? With what bad deal? Iran keeps saying openly they will not stop enrichment. And yet the United States is so desperate for a deal. What? For the sake of a deal? The Iranians know this, which is why they're pushing.
The United States wants a deal because we've been funding two wars that aren't our wars. And I understand that when it comes to the world, you help your friends and things can be a problem for you too. But we've been funding the Ukraine. First of all, we funded the Iraq war for years, probably for Israel and perhaps the military industrial complex and oil, etc. But like, that wasn't really for us. I mean, they told us it was on the television. That's controlled by, people that have the same foreign policy. But, we invaded Libya. What did that have to do with us? We went in Afghanistan and wasted trillions of dollars for years, and now the Taliban owns it again. What did that have to do with us? We're funding Ukraine against Russia. Ukrainians have a right. Russians have something going on. What does that do for us? What does that do for us? And the more you listen to these idiot politicians, Democrats and Republicans, they say, it's for democracy. It's for democracy. How is it for democracy when there's no elections in the country? How is it for democracy when a revolution happens that's for the person they want and they say it's great? A revolution happens against the person they want and they scream insurrection. It's like, it's so obviously not for us. And then when it comes to Israel and Palestine, the only ones who believe it's for us at this point are over 50 and over 60 evangelical Christians who have been brainwashed by, the Schofield Bible footnotes and the Zionist interpretation of Christianity, which was only introduced into America within the last 100 years or so. And for the last 2,000 years, no great Christian leader ever thought that. If you read the writings of any legendary Christian they teach about in school, no one thought that way. Even the Christians that they do tell you about, like Billy Graham, they tell you about Billy Graham, but they don't tell you what he said on the Nixon tapes. But you won't look that up. You probably will now. But what did Billy Graham say privately? Publicly, he would never say it, but he got caught saying it privately, and he apologized. He's probably not sorry. He probably just got caught saying what Christians have been saying for hundreds and thousands of years, that we have a separate religion, we have a separate ideology, and it's no disrespect to others, but they're pushing certain things into America that is incompatible with Christianity and not really our value. And, it's just like when people complain about Islam coming into America. I mean, some people are rude and some people are hateful, but we don't have to pretend like every religion's the same. We don't have to pretend like every country is the same. Go to a city in India and ask yourself, is this exactly like America? And if it's not exactly like America, ask yourself, do you want that? And if you don't, it doesn't make you racist. It's just like, it's different countries, it's different people, it's a different culture. We're not allowed to say that, or we're only allowed to say it for people that they want us to. But when it comes to others, then it's just hate speech. Yeah, whatever. But that's why, to Ben, that's why Trump and JD Vance might feel this way. Like we're funding multiple wars right now, and Trump wants them both to come to an end. That's the truth. Like, I know I call Trump a puppet because he really is. And I know I call it theater because I believe it is until I have enough evidence otherwise. And when stuff comes out like this, you have to ask yourself, is this just more theater? Could be. I'm not mad at it if it is. But if it's not, it could be like Trump wants to, like, if he had it his way, he would want to end both wars because it looks bad for him and it's just not what he wants. But Trump is like powerless to end the wars. And, let's just say Trump is a good guy, right? And he's not a puppet. He said he was going to end the Ukraine and Russia war. He hasn't. And now he's playing the other side. He's told Netanyahu and Israel, hey, can you finish it before I get into office? Because Trump didn't want this to look bad on him. But, 6 months, 5 months into his presidency, it's not over, and he wants it over. So I'm not saying he's necessarily right, but when Ben's like, I can't fathom why JD Vance and the isolationists and Steve Witkoff and Trump, want to intervene in this, because we're funding both wars. And if we're funding both wars and the president's funding both wars want to stop both wars, that's why they probably feel this way. Because I know Ben, if he had it his way, maybe he wouldn't want to stop the war. Maybe he would attack more. But he said earlier, Trump doesn't want to do that. So it's like he's acting dumb to why that could possibly be. It's like, how dare United States politicians for the first time in 10 years actually prioritize the United States? Who do they think they are, or why are they doing this? And, the more U.S. politicians do this, I expect there to be more propaganda, more false flags, and more events that are supposed to emotionally or just literally push people into doing the things that people want to do. And I'm not saying that everything's fake, because things are real. People are evil and messed up things happen. But as soon as a tragedy happens, after years of social media being better on censorship, they cracked down on censorship last week. What do you know? Censorship's back. They're back to closing certain avenues up. It's like, because when there's no tragedy, people are like, no, we're not going to do it. As soon as it happens, the politicians push legislation, the social media starts shutting stuff down, and everybody knows that. Everybody knows that that's all it takes to get all that to do it. So what's to stop evil people in this world, in any group, of doing that? And then when something happens, you have to ask yourself, you don't want to seem like a tinfoil hat crazy. On one hand, there are bad people and there are crazy people and there are evil people, and there's, the media doesn't even show it anymore, but there's murders in major cities all the time. Like, people are going nuts in the inner cities of like every major US city, because our country's ghetto now, and it kind of sucks. I love America, but it's getting pretty ghetto everywhere. It's like, yeah, those things do happen naturally, not to blame everybody. But then also, like every major war that we've been fighting in the last like 10 years, it's like they tell us something and then 15 years later, they're like, oh yeah, that was a false flag. Oh yeah, we were wrong. When I was in 2004, 2005, when I would try to tell people, Democrat or Republican, after 9/11, I was like, you know what? I don't like George Bush. I don't trust him. And I think we're being lied to by the New World Order. People looked at me like I was crazy. They said, you're a terrorist. What do you like, bin Laden, blah, blah, blah. And now 15 years later, every Republican knows that the Iraq war was a lie. Even Caroline Leavitt talks about it. So, but the same people admitting now that we got lied to into war by the media, like Caroline Leavitt said the other day, and I'm not saying because she's under 30, it's not her fault, but that's the same people that freaked out when I said it 10 years ago. So they don't mind telling you the truth about it. Oh yeah, they did false flags in World War I. Oh yeah, the Levant affair was a thing. Oh yeah, the Gulf of Tonkin and this and that and Pearl Harbor. I'm not saying everything's fake, but it's like they'll tell you that 50 years later, but when it's happening, that's what they use to push us into war. And everyone knows that. So are we just supposed to sit here and just let, people like Marco Rubio say, hey, we're going to go around the world and make sure that nobody censors United States citizens? You're doing it in the United States, bro. You're the one pushing social media companies and schools to adopt an international definition of hate speech that just so happens to benefit the people that pay you money and donate to you. And the biggest donors in the Republican Party. Like, these people think we're so stupid. Yeah. Who's Marco Rubio going after? Some censorship, but how are the people that are censoring us and the ones that are pushing the laws and literally screening the social medias of people trying to be United States citizens to make sure they bow down to the foreign country that totally doesn't control us? Oh, he's going to be the one to fight censorship? Yeah, that's as believable as a big, beautiful bill, like lowering the deficit and cutting taxes. It's like inflation is a tax on everyone. Now, if you make 100,000, it's like making 40, 30,000 a couple 10, 20 years ago. Inflation is so bad in this country. It's like, oh, we're going to print trillions of dollars and give you a cut. It's like giving me a COVID check. Oh, thanks for the $1,200 check, but now I'm $70,000 poorer due to inflation. But man, that I bought a cool Xbox and some Nikes with that, COVID commie check. That's the Republican Party. They're like communists. And then you say that and like, people are like, oh, you're just a Democrat. How am I a Democrat when Donald Trump and the Republican Party acts like Karl Marx on steroids? Everything they do is communist. Income tax is communist. There was no graduated income tax in America when Karl Marx wrote the Communist Manifesto. If you woke Karl Marx up out of his grave and you told him, hey, here's the Republican tax cut, the lower class gets 10%, the up 15%, 20%, whatever it is, 25%. Oh, they cut it from 38 to 33. Karl Marx would be like, wait, that's communism. Like I couldn't have even dreamed of 30% tax. When Karl Marx wrote the Communist Manifesto, he probably thought 15% tax was like crazy. Like the fact that Republicans are like, we're going to cut it from 38 to 33. Okay. You went from a communist on steroids to a communist on creatine. Cool. Wow. You're so small government. So stupid. Let's listen to a few more and keep it moving.
And so when Trump warned Netanyahu not to go and do anything about Iran, just trust us. Okay, listen, I will trust that President Trump will cut a good deal if he continues to maintain the Trump 1.0 stance, which is no nuclear enrichment at all, no nuclear facilities at all. That was something that 3 weeks ago the Trump administration was saying. President Trump himself, again, I'm with Trump 1.0 on this, not Steve Witkoff and J.D. Vance 2.0.
If Ben is ever upset at Steve Witkoff and J.D. Vance, that means they're doing a good job. So, he's like, I liked what Trump was doing before, but not what he's doing now. It must mean what's going on now is awesome. And they're actually trying to end the war and get America, something that actually benefits us. So the more upset Ben is at foreign policy, usually the better it is for the United States and the better it is for me. So we'll see.
Donald Trump 1.0 killed Qasem Soleimani, destroyed the Iranian economy, and held them in check. Then Joe Biden came in, reversed a bunch of that stuff, and you got October 7th and a vast regional war. Why wouldn't we just go back to Trump 1.0? That is the foreign policy that actually shaped the Abraham Accords. Why is that not the thing? Instead of calling the prime minister of Israel and telling him he needs to restrain himself on Iran.
One thing he won't tell you that no one will tell you, because to be honest, I think I did this research and I never saw anybody else say it, but I looked up the Abraham Accords and what countries that involved, right? Because Jared Kushner and Trump did that. And it's like, oh, yay, everybody's getting along with Israel. That's great, right? Awesome. And then when the COVID lockdown happened, the Abraham Accords essentially doubled as a vaccine passport travel situation, where I noticed that all of the countries that signed the Abraham Accords with Israel ended up doing travel with Israel during COVID, as long as everyone had a vaccine. So it's like, wow, that peace deal turned into a will all, intertravel and discriminate against the unvaccinated together. I'm not saying that was always the plan, because it probably wasn't, but it's like, Trump 1.0, Trump 1.0 printed trillions of dollars. Trump 1.0 did 15 days to slow the spread. Trump 1.0 turned the Abraham Accords into a, vaccine passport travel situation. So there's a lot missing from that. Like, oh, it was so great the first term. I'm pretty sure everybody that, like, I guess his foreign policy was good the first term, but I don't know. He cut the funding from Syria. Now Syria has been taken over by an ex-Al-Qaeda member. That's not exactly what he had in plan either. But let's listen to this clip of Piers Morgan, who has hurled insults at people critical of Israel for the last 7 months, only to, like every politician and Jake Tapper-esque mainstream media shilbert, now Piers Morgan is sounding exactly like Dan Bilzerian and people that he called names for a year. And he himself is getting accused of blood libel, which is apparently what people will say if you ever suggest that anyone Jewish or Israel ever did anything wrong ever in their life, one time, a single time ever. It's apparently blood libel, this ancient, horrible thing where people say that they did something wrong. Because listen to this thing. Piers Morgan sounds like Dan Bilzerian now. And listen to what I believe this is the UK's ambassador to Israel or something, or Israel's ambassador in the UK. One of those two. I'm not really sure, but look it up.
Few days ago, you have 2 doctors in Gaza who have 10 children, and 9 of them are killed in a bombardment by your forces. That doesn't make people feel, oh, this is all going great. It makes people think that you're waging a systematic destruction, not just of property and of land, but also of children. And that's what's happening. The percentage of children that you're killing.
So Piers Morgan is repeating this news story that everybody covered, including Fox News. Like, everybody's admitting that this happened. Maybe not everybody, but even Fox News, Trey Yingst said they killed 9 kids that were doctors' children, and they weren't Hamas. And Trey Yingst is pretty fair. If they were affiliated with Hamas, he'd be like, yeah, they were Hamas. No, they just wiped out 9 children that were doctors' kids, not affiliated with Hamas, according to even Fox News. So Piers Morgan starts bringing this up, and the lady says, Piers, what you're doing right now is blood libel. That's what we call it here, when you say what we did and we don't want to admit that we did it, essentially.
How many children have you killed?
Piers, Israel is not killing children. Israel is not killing children. Hamas is using them as human
Israel is killing children every single day.
Piers, this is a blood label you're putting on Israel. You know it's not true.
No, it's not actually. And what you're trying to do is be very weaselly with your words.
No, I'm not.
The truth is, you are killing a lot of children. You would argue you're doing.
So Piers Morgan sounds like everybody that he hated for a while. And he's like, listen, that's what's happening. And she's like, that's blood libel. I've no, like, I say, like, I don't know how else to say this, and I'm sorry if it comes off wrong, but the people that act this way, I feel like they need to have some self-awareness, because this is the truth. Like, you could be pro-Israel, you could support what they're doing, but you're like, hey, one time over there, like, you did that. They'll say it's blood libel. You speak the truth, they'll call you an anti-Semite. They'll say it's anti-Semitism. It's the same thing that other races use to take no accountability. And to be honest, a lot of people won't report this because they're either afraid, ignorant, or don't want to lose all their connections in the Republican Party, who essentially covers this stuff up. But if you look at organizations like Black Lives Matter, and I've done deep dives before, who was the guy who basically, I won't say groomed, but organized Patrisse Cullors when she was young into being a Marxist activist? Who was it? His name was Eric Mann. There's videos of Eric Mann talking about, this sort of stuff. And Patrisse Cullors saying, this is the guy who basically got me to be a Marxist and, do Black Lives Matter era stuff. She holds up his book and says, this book reminds me of Mao's book, which Mao Zedong is a communist leader who killed tens of millions of people. And then if you listen to Eric Mann, who essentially took her at a young age and got her into the Marxist activism, they ask the guy, they say, what, made you want to do this? And what, what's your into this? And he's Jewish. And he says, I grew up in a Jewish communist household. And he says, my mom told me the world's made up of goyim who attack us, and we got to fight in the back those anti-Semites. So that's what he was told at a young age. He's fighting the anti-Semites, being a Marxist or whatever. And then he helps organize young Black people who eventually create one of the most costly race organizations ever. But I'm not saying it's everyone's fault, because it's not, but that's the true history of Black Lives Matter that you'll never hear Charlie Kirk and Ben Shapiro talk about, because why would they tell you that? Why would they just tell you what I just told you? It would destroy everything else that they talk about, and they'd probably say that it's hate speech, what I just said, even though it's true. So when you see someone like that, this is what people have been doing for a long time. It's like, you say they're doing this, they call you an anti-Semite. You say they're doing this, they call it blood libel. You speak the truth about this, they use the power of the press to smear you. They blacklist you from organizations and then say it's hate speech to say that they're even doing it. Like, there's a hate speech rule in America that's being passed into law in almost every single Republican state, in almost every state in America, over half of them at least. It's being pushed onto the schools. It's being pushed in Florida. It's being added onto littering bills to try to throw you in jail. They're trying to work around the First Amendment in every possible way they can. Groups like the ADL admit that they want the social media to censor more. And when you read this definition of anti-Semitism that Trump is passing, that Rubio's pushing, that they're all pushing, name somebody and I'll tell you if they pass it or not. Kristi Noem, yes. Sarah Huckabee Sanders, yes. Glenn Youngkin, yes. DeSantis, yes. Kemp, yes. All of them. It's all a big theater. So you read the definition of anti-Semitism, right? Because you're like, oh yeah, we're just going to fight the left and the bad guys, right? You read the definition and it says you're not allowed to accuse a single citizen of this ethnicity or this religion of having dual loyalty to Israel. So now it's hate speech if you don't walk around America and be like, Ben Shapiro is loyal to America, not Israel. Any dual loyalty supposition is anti-Semitism. And these are the same international definitions that are being passed into Argentina. And people are facing trial in Argentina. There was a politician who was talking about Zionism, and now she's getting criminally charged in Argentina under the same definition of anti-Semitism that America's passing. But America, it's not that easy to throw someone in jail because we have the First Amendment. But trust me, there's a lot of organizations that wish you could. In France, they're pushing it. In UK, they're pushing it. In Germany, they're pushing it. In Germany, you could go to prison. In Australia, Candace Owens is banned from the entire country because she did some sort of video questioning some element of World War II. Like, that's the world we live in. It's the same. So the point that I'm getting to is not only do people like Piers Morgan just debated say it's blood libel when you say they're doing anything. This is like, and I hope that pro-Israel people wake up to this stuff, because you can support the country, you could like them, you could want them to beat Hamas, and you could even want them to take over Palestine. I mean, that's on you if you believe that. But even if you believe all those things, being ignorant to what I'm telling you doesn't make you like a special boy. It just means you're ignorant. And the truth is, there's certain people out there that you can't say anything. They want to literally do whatever they want and have no one ever talk about it. So it's like, let's just say there's 10,000 Hamas and there's 50,000 kids and whatever. You're not really supposed to have an opinion about it. You're supposed to be like, just do whatever you want, and that's all. If you even say, hey, I like what you did there, but you did kill some kids there that you probably didn't need to kill, that's blood libel. You're not allowed to say that ethnicity, that religion, in that country ever did anything wrong. You're basically essentially supposed to sit down and be like, you're the greatest. You've never made a mistake. You're awesome, and everything you do is perfect. It's the same ideology they're pushing in America with Black America. At least the liberals were for a while. It's failing, where it's like, no matter what somebody Black in America does, you're supposed to be like, that's perfect. You've never made a mistake. Your communities are awesome. I totally want to live there. There's no crime there. You're crushing. You're a queen. And anybody else who says otherwise is racist. And we don't even care who does this. Let's lower the bar. Like, let's have female pilots that are transgender, or else you're just a hate speech if you don't want RuPaul to be your pilot. Like, I'm exaggerating a little, but you get what I'm saying? It's like, that's been the definition of America. It's like, you're not allowed to say that this neighborhood's dangerous or this and that or this. Nope. Everything's great. You're the best. You're a queen. It's the same thing with them. It's the same thing. It's like, yeah, your country is the best. do whatever you want. You've never done anything wrong. You know, your military's never made a mistake, and nobody should talk about it. It's like, we don't have that standards for our military. We don't have that standards for our ethnic groups. We don't have that standard for our religion. But now we have to live in a world where we're like essentially peasants that have to say, you do that. If my country does something wicked overseas and drone strikes 7 children or whatever, I'm allowed to talk about it, right? But then if your country does it, I'm not allowed to say anything, but you just get unlimited access to taxpayer money for the rest of your life, and we have to support everything you do. That's what it is. And it's, I wouldn't say it's funny because it's sick, and war is sick, and everything that's happening is sick, but I figured this out in 2019. I was pro-Israel. I supported them. I liked them. I didn't care for Palestine, whatever. And all I did was I was like, you know, I don't like these hate speech laws that Republicans are passing, because I'm one of the only people in this movement that's not a sold out idiot. So when I saw DeSantis and Trump passing hate speech laws, my first thought wasn't like, oh, let me ignore this so I could get invited to Mar-a-Lago like every other idiot that you guys support. I was like, this infringes on the First Amendment. We've been telling people for the last 3 years that hate speech laws don't work. And we've said this about Black and Mexican and liberal, but now I'm supposed to believe Dave Rubin and Ben Shapiro and just not talk about this? I was like, no, this makes Dave and Ben the biggest hypocrites in the world. If hate speech doesn't work for Black, why would hate speech laws work for Jewish people? Like, it doesn't. If we truly believe these don't work and we have free speech for a reason, why would we be pushing hate speech laws for Israel? And as soon as I started saying that, I got blacklisted. I got disinvited to places. I got phone calls saying that I wasn't allowed to go to the conferences that everybody goes to. Like, everything took a turn in my life. And everybody knows that in the Republican Party. That's why they all do it. They're either in on it. They're either just evil or dishonest, or they want money and resources. There's a lot of money and resources to be had if you just shut up and take the money. When Candace Owens started working for Daily Wire, before she said anything or questioned anything about the war, I knew, like, I love Candace, and I think she's awesome, and I think Candace is a superstar, and I think she's one of the best stars that we have. Like, she's a mega star, and she deserves everything she had. All I'm saying is, when she went to Daily Wire, I knew they want Candace Owens to be the token girl to say their talking points. I knew it, I would never get hired by Daily Wire, not just because I'm not a girl or my race. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I knew the Daily Wire would never be interested in me because my foreign policy included standing up for the American First Amendment over Israel. And when Candace was on their side and she was like, Palestine sucks, blah, 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 like, they liked her. I knew before she even said anything, you can't get that job. Like, if Candace would have said what she said now before she got hired by PragerU and the Daily Wire, she never would have been allowed to go there. So this is, everybody deserves to wake up or say what they want at the time that they want. But I've known this for years. And as soon as Candace started talking about it, it's like, yeah, it's only a matter of time until something happens, because that's what this is. You can't really work at Fox News and tell the truth that much. Like Tucker Carlson, he was very honest. And it's like, all right, when is Tucker Carlson going to leave? He's too honest. He's too questioning the narrative. Tucker Carlson's out. Candace Owens is out. So then I asked people, and I'm not trying to tell you what to watch, but if Daily Wire wouldn't let Candace Owens say that, and everybody in our profession knows that you're not allowed to speak that way and get these jobs, and then Tucker Carlson was keeping it real on Fox News and they kicked him out, why would you watch these news networks knowing that you're getting basically like a limited disclosure of stuff, and anybody that has an alternate opinion essentially can't work in the same atmosphere? And they're not that interested in debating everybody, and they're not that interested in, having conversations with people that disagree with them. But this has been well known for a long time, and now it's hitting Donald Trump. Donald Trump is somebody who is pro-Israel, done everything they've ever wanted. Him for 3 days, even being like, can you chill for a couple days? Dude, he's got to go along with everything that they say, or else they're going to freak out at him constantly. But if this really happens and it's not theater, it's going to be interesting, because the rage of 1,000 Ben Shapiros, every time you ask them to just relax on any sort of topic ever, it's blood libel, it's anti-Semitism, you're horrible, you're terrible. Like, I don't know how far Trump's even going to go or can go, because for a United States president to not let them do like everything is going to be tough. I'll read Mark Levin's statement real quick, and then I'll read a few comments and try to keep this one as short as possible. But I had a lot to say about this. Not just because it affects everything. It's the wars that we're funding, but it's also how Republican media works. And, I've always said this to anybody, like, doesn't matter if it's Trump or JD Vance, you pass all these anti-Semitism hate speech laws, they're eventually going to be used against you, because if you read the hate speech laws that they're passing and that Marco Rubio's enforcing on foreigners, it's things that Trump doesn't always follow. Like, Ted Cruz has been called anti-Semitic. Tom Cotton's been called anti-Semitic. Everyone's been called anti-Semitic because of the hate speech laws. Like, they're passing laws that they don't follow that infringe on the First Amendment. So in a weird way, it's actually good that this is happening to Donald Trump, because anybody that's either sold out or stupid enough to pass an executive order for anti-Semitism without reading the international definition they pass, he deserves to get called out by Ben Shapiro and Mark Levin. And hopefully at some point, these people will snap out of it and realize, oh, I probably shouldn't be passing these laws into the United States. It doesn't make sense. So, it's like, what the tyrannical rules that you pass will and should be used against you. And either, it ends up being your downfall, or you course correct and don't make the same mistake again. But here's what Mark Levin said. I don't really know what Mark Levin sounds like, so I don't have a good Mark Levin impression. He said in all caps, "Why is the United States dictating to Israel how to fight Hamas? Why do we have an envoy negotiating with Hamas and working with Qatar and telling Israelis what to do with Hamas when Hamas attacked Israel, slaughtered their people, and Hamas is holding their people hostage? Israel wants to destroy Hamas. We keep demanding a ceasefire, which is what the Biden regime did. Why are we not allowing Israel to handle this instead of prolonging the war? As for the hostages, the Israelis want them back as urgently as we do, indeed more so. They have decided the best way forward. The Israelis have all but destroyed Hezbollah. They are destroying Hamas, and they have destroyed Iran's air defenses and much of its economy. Israel knows what to do and how to do it." So he's just mad like Ben Shapiro, I guess. He's like, how dare Trump tell them anything? It's like, all right, you totally don't support Israel over America, Mark Levin. I'm sure you're just so loyal to America, right? Or else it's hate speech, because you're a special boy with special boy laws, and everyone needs to say that everything you do is awesome, or else you'll probably accuse them of blood libel. Cool. With that being said, I want to say, when he says, like, why, I want to read it again. He's getting mad that Steve Witkoff, or whatever his name is working with Qatar, who's actually United States' ally. I'm not saying they're perfect, but all the people that are like Israeli or Israeli adjacent, they'll be like, Qatar's the enemy, Qatar. Everybody's Qatar. It's like, they hate Qatar so much. The average American doesn't even think about Qatar at all. They're like, it's not even a thought that crosses my mind. But I guess with this situation too, I'll say this, and then I'll read some comments. I try to, for the most part, like, I don't like to talk about this all the time, because people are very emotional. They're like, especially people that have loyalty to Israel. It's like, they're never going to admit they have loyalty to Israel, and they're never going to move there, but they're so loyal to Israel that they take it personally if you don't agree with everything that they ever say. It's like, you're the enemy now because you don't bow down to every word that they ever say. But it's like, in general, not only is it an ugly situation to talk about, and I do want to say too, like, on the side that's critical of Israel and the pro-Palestine side and the liberals and the Dan Bilzerian types, I'm not sitting here saying I agree with everything that they ever say or do, and I'm not saying that they never make mistakes or do weird stuff, because people do. And this is not a shot at Dan Bilzerian. I'm just like giving people a hypothetical. Like, there's liberals who disagree with Israel. There's the Dan Bilzerian types that are coming critical of them from a maybe either right wing or nonpartisan position. And I'm not sitting here saying like everything they've ever said is perfect. But with that being said, like, listening to both sides, right? There's extremes and people who take it further on both sides. When I listen to both sides, in my opinion, the Zionists and the pro-Israel side, they have the worst, dumbest talking points, because they don't really have to be right. They can just like freak out at you all the time. Where, like, on my Facebook page, anytime I post anything that challenges the narrative at all the Facebook Zionist boomer heads that watch too much Fox News, they start flocking to the comments. And one of the number one talking points for the last 2 years that I've heard people say on Fox News, that I've heard all sorts of people say, they say, Hamas deserves to die, or Palestinians deserve this because they voted for Hamas. These people don't even realize that the last election for Hamas, I believe, was in the 2000s when Obama was in office, or maybe even George Bush was in office. I'm not quite sure. I think it was 2006 or 2008. I'd have to look it up, but it was far over a decade ago was their last election. It was in the 2000s. That's when Hamas got elected. So they I don't even think they know this or they care. So it's like, you think that you think that it's okay that they slaughter 9 children that have no affiliation with Hamas because the adults in that country voted for Hamas like over 15, 20 years ago or whatever it was, like probably over 15 years ago. Like you're a psychopath. You're a very sick person. Like, you're so sickened by the media that you think it's okay that they slaughter children that can't vote because adults haven't been able to vote in 10 or 15 years. Like, that's crazy logic. Would you apply that logic to yourself? If Joe Biden does evil stuff, do you think people should be able to do whatever they want to the United States? I mean, that's the same thing that bin Laden was saying on 9/11. He wrote a manifesto and was like, the United States is funding Israel and funding all these terrorists all over the world, so I'm going to attack innocent civilians because you're paying for the taxes. That's bin Laden logic right there. Kill innocent civilians because of what your leaders are doing because you're voting for it, even though we can't even vote our way out of it. So it's like, we know we can't vote our way out of stuff in America. We just had 4 years of a president we don't want, yet you're going to act like a child in Palestine has an election or their parents can decide. If you in the greatest, most free nation in the world can't even choose your own president and you think the elections are rigged here, how are you so ignorant and so stupid to think that a country that hasn't had an election in 15 years has the ability to get rid of a political party that they have in power? And if you look at the election, it wasn't even a landslide election by any means. So it's like that talking point doesn't make any sense. It's evil and stupid. But these Fox News boomer Zionist brain, they don't care. They just keep saying it. They're like, yeah, I'm going to close my eyes and just justify whatever they're doing because of an election I'm not even aware of that hasn't even happened in over a decade. It's like, then you're an idiot. So it's like, this is the average Zionist boomer brain that listens to Fox News. They say stuff like that. And like I said, not every, like, I can't stand the left wing. People that are critical of Israel make mistakes all the time and they say dumb stuff that I don't agree with. But it's like, there's really no comparison. The side that's pro-Israel is just so clueless. And they're clueless because they can just cry hate speech. Like, if you disagree with them, they could say you're hate speech. They could call you a terrorist. It's the same thing that happened during the 2000s when I was right, even at a young age. And I said, I don't believe this war on terror. I've done enough research and I think that we're being duped. 9 out of 10 people would say I'm a terrorist, even though I'm not. But they're like, what do you, it's either America or the terrorists. The same people are doing the same thing today. They're like, if you don't agree with everything that we say, you're a terrorist, you're a sympathizer, you're working with the enemy. And now they're doing it with Donald Trump because this is how it goes. It doesn't matter if you support them 99% of the time. If you even dare tell the special chosen people that have special boy rules and special boy laws and special boy everything, if you even dare to be like, you know what, can you relax for just 1 or 2 days while I try to negotiate? They're going to freak out because America has to have the same enemies as them. We have to do whatever they want. It's like, I'm not like, Russia's not my enemy, no matter how much the media says it. Neither is Ukraine. It's just Ukraine is taking our money and fighting a war essentially on our behalf. So we have more relationship with them. But the media wants to convince you Russia is our enemy. Why is Russia our enemy? What does that have to do with the United States? It's the same thing with like all these other countries. They're going to convince us that everyone that Israel doesn't like is our enemy. And at some point, United States politicians are going to either figure out or have to deal with the fact that they make a lot of enemies, not just because they're fighting for their survival, but because of their actions, they just constantly make more enemies. It's like they don't want to hear anything. They don't want to listen to anybody. They don't want any sort of scrutiny whatsoever. And they'll just say it's anti-Semitism or blood libel if you say something that's true that they don't want to hear. So, and then everybody in the world has to pass their international hate speech laws that they're a protected class that you're not supposed to say anything about. You're not supposed to say Ben Shapiro has dual loyalty. That's hate speech in 15 different countries or 20 different countries. It's like, you know, that's not likable. So then people don't like it. And then they pass more hate speech laws. So at a certain point, it's going to affect America. If you need to fight the countries around you to survive, we understand. But if you're doing it in a way that's so reckless and so annoying that literally every week and every month, more and more people don't like it, like, why do we have to be a country that does that? We already have enough problems and people already hate America enough because we've already done enough stupid stuff on our own. Now we have to absorb the cost of a country that we're funding because they don't want to listen to anybody. They don't want to cooperate with Trump. They don't want to strike a deal. Trump wants peace in those two countries, and our allies in those countries don't want peace. So what are we supposed to do? Just go along with it for the whole time? I know that if Israel had it its way, it would wipe Iran off the map. And I'm sure Iran feels the same way. And I understand that Israel has every right to want to prevent that and fight back. But it's like, as the United States, like, can we not try to make a peaceful deal? I get that both sides are really ramped up, but it's like, now we have to deal with all this stuff all the time. Like, Ukraine says this, Israel says this, they say this. We just got to fund everybody as millions of people die. And it's like, nah, at a certain point, people got to figure out a deal. And what Israel's doing to Palestine, it's not going to be so easy to do it to Iran. Iran has, I think, over 70 million people in it. I mean, I could look it up right now. Iran population is 90 million people. Palestine population, it's probably far down, but 5 million people. To do it to a country with 90 million people, like, this is not an easy war to win. It's an impossible war to win for a small country. They need the United States to back them. And I'm sure the US is looking at it like, you got to figure something out, because we're not trying to send our entire country to war with a country that's like half the size of ours. And when it comes to Russia, like, Russia's not going to be beaten in a war. And drone warfare is really scary, because right now, people are just sending rogue drones just trying to do crazy shit. And it's really nuts. Like, I don't think Trump wants either of these wars, and he has every right to try to negotiate it. I'm not like a massive super fan of Iran by any means, but, I don't hate them as much as Mark Levin does. I'm just going to be honest. I don't hate them as much as Ben Shapiro does. I don't think that they're irredeemable. I think that there's a path to getting along, but they don't want to get along. And same with like Ukraine. I'm sure Russia is pissed off and they've done some things, but in general, I don't think Ukraine wants peace. I think if Trump ever gets close to peace, they're going to do something, and then Putin's going to do something, and then it's just never going to end. So, I'm not an expert on ending wars, but at what point can the United States fix its own problems? Like, we have to be involved in all this. San Francisco sucks. Most cities suck now. New Orleans is like the murder capital of the country. Like, Memphis has a ridiculous crime rate. New York City has a ridiculous crime rate. It's like, this country is getting ghetto, and that's a main concern of mine, because every year tens of thousands of people are getting killed by gang violence in America. Millions of people are dying from pharmaceutical pill, overdoses and all sorts of crazy fentanyl stuff. And I'm not saying that war in other country isn't necessary, but it's like our country just keeps getting shittier and shittier and shittier and shittier. And everybody I know here can't afford anything because they're getting paid less, but then inflation's really high. So at what point do we have the right to keep our own money and be like, listen, we're going to help you to the best of our ability, but if you're dead set on making everybody your enemy till the end of time because you don't want to be even slightly scrutinized, at what point are we going to be like, we're not trying to be attached at the hip with you? And that's how I feel, no offense, but with Ukraine and Israel. I don't want to be attached at the hip to Ukraine or Israel, but right now we currently are, and I don't want it, and you can't really vote your way out of it. So, I understand why Ukraine would want it, and I understand why Israel would want it, etc. But every United States citizen doesn't need to want that. And Trump and Witkoff have a right to seek peace. The closer we get to peace, the more neocons get upset, in my opinion. Let's read a few comments and let's see what people say. I'm willing to read a few as long as they're not too crazy. Boggy said, I will shut up when we stop thinking it's okay to off kids and when it's okay to be white. Okay. Someone said, kids are sold out to fund AIPAC. Kids are being sold to fund AIPAC. I mean, I don't know about kids being sold, but I'm not sure what you're referring to. Definitely they have influence in politics, though. Let's see. The CIA, someone said the CIA admitting to wearing masks resembling black people and the constant unsolved gang drive-bys. I never heard of that, but I would not be shocked by that. Is that true? Or I don't know. People are saying some interesting stuff that I can't really verify. So hopefully I could find a comment that isn't so confusing. Please read my comment. I just read it, but it's not the comment you wanted me to read. Sorry, bro. Someone said Anomaly's the GOAT. Thank you, Kai. I appreciate the compliment. Michael said I'm mad. I wouldn't be mad. I would just be aware, because can I go on a little rant about this too? Whether it's liberals, whether it's Charlie Kirk, whether it's Trump, whether it's Fox News, whether it's Rachel Maddow, everybody wants you to be mad all the time. Be mad, be upset, be angry. You should be mad. They want you to be mad. And I'm not trying to speak for everyone, but they want you to be mad because when you're mad, you're blinded by reality and you're more likely to make mistakes. I'm mad at Joe Biden being elected. Now I'm pissed off. Let me go do this. Well, then the feds are just going to set you up. Like when you get mad enough at something, it's probably a Fed trap. Not always, but it's like, I'm angry. I'm mad. Why are you mad? Because I trusted Trump and I got tricked. Well, be mad at yourself. Like what is it? And so many people, not so many people, but people really think they're like, you're just saying be peaceful because of this and that. No, the people that get angry and frustrated, they're like, I really need to do something. You think the people on your side are on your side and they're not even on your side. So you're not doing anything. You're not organized. Like nothing you're doing is going to do anything except for fuel the enemy and make it harder for anybody to do anything good in this country. Like the truth is not some sort of short, like anger, like I'm mad. So yeah, so were the liberal activists. They were mad about the George Floyd situation, so they started like burning down neighborhoods. I'm mad. I'm sure you are, but like, what does that do? Now, would you just burn down a business because you're pissed off about racism? Like, it's the same vibe on the right sometimes, where people just get pissed off all the time. Relax. You know what I'm saying? You relax, take it as what it is, and work towards a better world. But that includes people being better themselves. And I know it sounds hippy dippy, but it's just true. Nobody wants to do it. It's like everybody wants to like, and it's like, okay, but like, are you going to, like, if you slowly take the steps to be a smarter, wiser, better person yourself, take care of yourself better, then you start realizing more and more is theater. And then you're like, dang, if I never took the time to make myself better, I would have got tricked. I would have got tricked on January 6th. I got tricked by QAnon. You know, I used to be liberal. It's like, yeah, because anger blinds you. A boxer isn't angry. When a boxer's angry, they make mistakes and they lose. Nobody fights angry because then you're not tactical. It's the same thing in life. Anger is like a blinder. Hate is a blinder, you know, and this goes for any side, but it's always the people that'll say I'm hateful for speaking the truth. I'm not hateful. I don't hate Israel. I don't hate Palestine. I don't hate Russia. I don't hate Ukraine. I don't hate any country. I don't hate any religion. I don't hate any race or group. And some people will say, I do. Okay, that's on you, like your life. But I don't do it because I'm live right now and I'm like, oh, I don't want to say what I really think. I'll tell somebody on a private walk with no cell phones the same thing. I literally don't hate anybody because hate is a burden. It's like, I cannot hate, but still have opinions about demographics and race and nations and religion. I tell you exactly what I think, but I'm not hateful about it because why do I need to be? Why do I need to be mad and angry to speak the truth? And also the truth is, like, say during COVID, it's like if everyone did the right thing all the time, we'd live in a boring world. Like if you feel special where you're like, I'm good at this. What makes you good at something, right? Let's just say you're a good athlete or you're good at your job or you're a nicer person or you're more awake than your friends. If everyone was on the same level as you, you'd be person number 5,400,050. Like the world is what it is. It's like, it's not to say that you have to agree with the wicked, but it's like, be grateful for the present moment and seize the day and take it for what it is and do your best and make a change. But it's like, if everything was the way that it should be, then nothing would be anything. It's like, you can't live in a fake world that, you know, it's like, I wish every race, you know, sang songs and ate gumdrops. Well, that's not what's going on in the world. So, you know, this is a problem that liberals have and conservatives also have that don't think about stuff like that. They think like, well, I think this way. Well, I don't care what ethnicity people are. That's nice. Same with me, but that's not how the world works. So it's like, if you think that way, but everyone else is not thinking that way. And math and science, in 30 years, you're going to be a minority and you're going to live in an area that doesn't like you, And I'm not saying that's always the case, because it's not, but it's like, there's a way to be calm and kind and respectful and not hateful, but also not an idiot. I'm not one of these people that just sits here and acts like the world's perfect. Like I know what's going on. And it's like, I speak my mind about it to the point where people will say I'm hateful. I have opinions about like things that people think are mean, but I'm not mean. It's just true. For example, they said that Matt Walsh said that there's reports coming out that every fight that the Secret Service has had amongst each other has been women. And he said, make of that what you will. And I commented on it and I said, outside of just that news, I don't think women should be Secret Service members unapologetically. Hopefully I never have a job where I even have to think about apologizing for it, but I never would apologize for this because I mean this and I'm not sorry about it. I don't think a woman should be a Secret Service person because all the top NASCAR drivers are men. All the top, all the top sprinters and racers are men. All the top athletes are men. All the top chess players are men right now. The top 100 are all men, even though it's gender neutral. And there's something to that. Pattern recognition, speed, driving skills. I'm sure if you look at shooting competitions, men are probably doing better at that too. So it's like, if we know that, if we know a man UFC fighter overpowers the women UFC fighter, if we know men are better drivers on average, I'm not saying if you're a woman, you're a worse driver than me. I'm just saying statistically, like, are we going to pretend that Caitlin Clark is as good as LeBron James? I love Caitlin Clark. She's fascinating. She's the Michael Jordan and the Tiger Woods of her sport in female basketball, but she's not as good as a man, So why would I want like a bodyguard to be some obese 70-year-old? No, I want him to be a fit younger guy. So it's like, the reason I brought that up is someone will be like, oh, you're hateful. I'm not hateful. I love women. I appreciate women. I'm a very respectful guy, or at least try to be. I believe that, what I'm saying? You could say these controversial things without being hateful about it. Some people are hateful, but I can't really relate. I don't hate any country. I don't hate any group. I don't hate any gender. I just think certain things are the way they are. I think women make babies and men don't. That's the way it's always worked. Like, am I hateful if I don't think men make babies? Women make babies and women don't make as good as Secret Service as men. There's a lot of jobs that women do well in, but I don't think policing, Secret Service, security guards, basketball, like this is not a place that they do better. I want the best Secret Service. I don't want DEI Secret Service, right? Most Republicans, I'm not going to say most Republicans, but a lot of Republicans don't even agree with me. They're like, oh, what if a woman does this and that? Sure, I guess, but like, I don't know. It's just not the way like nature works. So, and then there were really cool women on my Facebook page that were like, I'm a woman and I'd rather have a guy protecting me. Duh. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm a guy. And if I have someone to protect me that's not me, I want it to be a guy and I don't want it to be a fat or an old guy. Like sometimes I see security guards and they're like fat. It's like, no offense, but what is this like 800-pound guy? How's he going to help me? I want some guy to be tall, jacked, like, if they're going to like be a security guard, that would probably be helpful. No, I just want some like rotund old guy or like some woman to be a security. Like no one actually thinks this. Like I'm saying what everyone instinctually knows. Yeah, of course, honest women would want a guy to protect them. Why wouldn't they? Oh yeah, you want a security guard of a bunch of women? No, you don't. Nobody does that. Nobody wants that. Everybody just pretends. I don't know how I got there, but I'm glad I did because that's what I believe. But someone said hate is a tool. Yeah, and like, I think if you could clear, like, it's like having a bunch of tabs open in your mind. If you could have a clear mind and you could be grateful, it's a superpower. Gratefulness is a superpower. And I didn't get to where I got, and I'm not the be all end all, but like everything I've received, it didn't come to me until I leaned. Well, obviously, like I did get some things and I worked hard even before I had a good mindset. But once I changed my mindset and I was grateful, everything came to me. And it's like gratefulness is a superpower. It's a bigger superpower than being hateful. It's a bigger superpower than being angry. Being grateful changes the game. And you can be grateful without being an idiot. You understand? Like you don't have to be like, everything is, it's like, that's not what grateful means. Grateful means understanding the difference between this and this. And when it comes to race, I talk about this all the time. There's a macro and a micro. On a micro scale, I think you should treat every individual as an individual. If there's 50 white guys there, they're not all the same. Even if they're your own ethnicity, it's not like, oh, they're all the same, we're going to be best friends. If there's 50 white guys standing in a line, you're probably going to connect really good with like 10 of them. And then like 10 of them will be like super douchey. A couple of them will be forgettable and whatever. It's like everybody's their own person. So on a micro level, you should just treat people with how they treat you and be respectful. But just because you respect anybody, regardless of who they are on a personal level, on a macro level, you can't just say that race means nothing. Because it's like, yeah, let's replace every Chinese person with a Mexican and it'll be China. How will it be China? It might get better. It might get worse. I would argue that it would get worse because I don't know. I mean, among their many flaws, I feel like Chinese people as a nation, they're like it's very clean. It's safe, maybe a little bit too much surveillance and stuff. But, it's like, yeah, we're just going to pretend like that doesn't exist. Oh, yeah, India, it doesn't exist. It does exist, and it's mostly Indian people. I don't know. But in our countries, we have to pretend like it doesn't exist, right? We have to flip the demographics or else we're hateful. Now, you can love people on an individual basis, but not be an idiot when it comes to the macro of how religion, race, and ethnicity works. That's just the truth of how the world works. And playing dumb doesn't make you a good person. Like, I don't see that. Okay, it's fine, but doesn't make you better than me or nicer than me. Someone said, I grew up with the golden rule. I think it's a good one. Treat those the way you want to be treated. Someone said, I'm losing brain cells here, Anomaly. It sounds like a personal issue because this is some interesting information. If you're losing brain cells by listening to it, to me, it sounds like you're like ignorant or something. Or, I don't want to hear that. Okay, go watch a marketing tutorial or something. Go listen to, I don't know, a sports highlight reel. No one asked you to be here, but I do appreciate your ad revenue, I guess. Someone said Mexican and Chinese food together. That's like experimental. I've never seen that collaboration. I mean, I have seen like Korean tacos. I guess that would be Mexican and Asian, right? I have seen Korean tacos, but every culture has good food. Maybe not every culture. Some cultures, they have garbage food, but like everybody's got a little chicken, usually some steak or beef, some people got beans, some people got rice, some people got like noodles. It's like all the same things with different seasoning. I like pretty much all food because it's like, oh, do you like Mexican food? Bro, I like chicken. I like steak. I try to avoid pork. I eat it sometimes, but like I like chicken and steak and beef. I like noodles. I like rice. I like soup. It's like, can you make those things into something that tastes good? Yeah, then I like it. I like Thai. I like Japanese. I like Mexican. I like Indian. Just make those things good. And that's what everyone does. They just like twist it a little bit. But it's like, oh, I don't like that type of food. Yeah, I'm not going to go to Asia and eat like a fish head. I've been to an Asian restaurant and the fish is like looking at me from my friend's plate. And I'm like, did you have to get the fish that looks at me when I'm eating my soup? Like, I don't like stuff like that. But, some people do. It's just not me. Let's see. Someone said white American food is not good. That's hate speech in my opinion, but jokes aside, I mean, my family I have a few different like ethnicities. My Italian family made Italian food, so I guess that's not white American, that's more Italian. Italian food is fire. Polish food is good. I wouldn't say it's fire, but I mean, kibasi, like a pierogi, I do like it. It's definitely not the healthiest thing. What would white American food be? Like hamburgers and hot dogs? I mean, white people leveled up though with like hamburgers. Like it used to be whatever, but now you could get some garlic aioli sauce. Now you could get some smash burger. Dude, I like burgers. That's like American food is like a hot dog, a hamburger. But not every hamburger is basic, and not every white person doesn't use seasoning. Some people season their burgers and smash it. You know what I'm saying? Keep the juice in it. So I think food in America is good, but there's also so many cultures here. Everyone's doing like everything now. Like you could find a cheap burger, you could find an expensive one, you could find like a smash burger, you could find like a bacon maple burger with like freaking French fries on it. We got everything here. Sloppy Joe is a little suspect. I was just talking to somebody about school food. They fed us such bad food in school. It was like square pizza, like they're like Sloppy Joe's. Like you're like, yeah, Sloppy Joe day, but it's like, how cheap was that? And then I remember my favorite thing in school was they had like teriyaki meatballs, and I was like, oh, dude, teriyaki meatballs are so good. In hindsight, they were not good, but they were better than like square Elio's pizza. But it's like they couldn't feed us good food. I guess it's expensive when you're just like feeding everybody. They feed you this garbage and they're like 180, and you're like, all right, you know. I don't know. I guess schools can't afford to feed us like filet mignon and stuff. They just got to feed us like garbage that they were going to throw out, but it's whatever. I guess as a kid, you got a good system. You could just process it well. Yeah, the rectangle pizza was so bad. I should probably move on, but I do want to go on a rant. My pet peeve, I have two pet peeves, really. I have more, but when someone gives me a bad burger, have you ever been to a restaurant or like it's usually like these bar restaurants that aren't like hipster enough to be good. And you're like, yo, let me get a cheeseburger. And it's terrible. I feel offended. I'm like, how did you ruin a cheeseburger? Dude, I could go to Walmart. I could go to Kroger. You don't even have to go to like Whole Foods or anything. Go to any supermarket and buy any beef and put any beef in a circle and put that beef circle on your grill. Just don't be Chuck Schumer. And flip it over, put a piece of cheese on it, get any roll that exists from the cheapest roll to the most expensive roll, you know, and put some ketchup on it. It tastes amazing. Like it's literally, I've never in my life ever messed up a burger. Even if I overcook it well done, it still tastes pretty good. Like, how do you ruin a burger? I believe if I were the president of the United States or the dictator, I would arrest any restaurant owner that made a bad burger. And I'd be like, where is the chef? And then you bring the FBI or you bring the local police to the chef and you confront him and you say, hey, we don't want to throw you in prison, but we want to know, how did you ruin a hamburger? Like, what are you doing in here to ruin that? Because it's really like almost a skill to ruin a hamburger. Like any meat, any cheese, any bread should be able to create a good burger. It should be better than if I made it at home, but at bare minimum, just make it taste like a homemade burger. They taste fine. In fact, they taste amazing. It's the same thing with pizza. I mean, pizza's a little easier to mess up. So as a 25% Italian, I'm only 25% offended, but it's like, I get how you mess up a pizza, but still it's pretty hard to do. You can make a homemade one pretty easily, but how do you mess up a hamburger? And should you go to prison for messing up a hamburger when it's the easiest thing to make good? It's my rant. You know, luckily I'm not a president because I have a lot of more unpopular policies that I'd have that I don't really want to bring up right now. But I've already gotten in enough controversy. But yeah, pizza's pretty difficult. But to be honest, if you buy materials and make a pizza at your house, it's definitely harder to cook. But if it comes out, it's going to taste good. You buy like tomato sauce, you buy cheese, it's going to taste like pretty solid. It's not going to taste like an Italian pizzeria from New Jersey or New York, but it's going to be good. A hamburger, though? Come on. Do it right. Someone said, I can taste bad, low-quality beef. That's a skill because I really can't, you know? I can't tell. Like, I don't think I'd be able to tell the difference. I mean, if I'm getting a ribeye, I could taste the difference between a ribeye that tastes good and a ribeye that sucks. But when it comes to beef, I can't, I don't know. I can't really taste the difference. Like I make a burger and it just tastes good every time. I put it on the stove. Sometimes I make a stir fry. I like onions. I like garlic. I love garlic. I put garlic on like everything. I don't know if that's healthy. I hope so. Onions, garlic, like roasted red peppers or something, or like, you know, green peppers, bell peppers, you know, make a little thing with some beef in it. I can't taste bad beef. I think I buy good brands though. Like I try to buy good brands, but I've never once been like, oh, this beef tastes like shit. I'm always like, this is amazing. I want to start a food channel, and I would be like more like a Guy Fieri. I wouldn't be like a harsh critic like Gordon Ramsay. I kind of like food a lot. If it sucks, I'll be like, yo, this sucks. This is a 3. But if it's good, I don't know. I feel like I'd be giving out a lot of 9s and stuff. Like I'm a pretty easy, just don't screw it up so bad that it's terrible. But when someone cooks homemade, I feel like they never make bad meals. It's always like you go out to a restaurant or a bar. It's bars. Like bars make bad food for some reason. Not all bars, but it's like their nachos or whatever. It's like they got like wings. Their wings taste like shit sometimes. Like sometimes they're amazing, but it's like, you can't hire a chef that can like cook a pizza. You got like Elio's coming out. I don't know. It's not for me, but someone said barbarians were mostly meat eaters. Pink slime. I mean, it's not healthy for you, but I'm not going to lie. Like, I think Wendy's tastes good. I think McDonald's tastes good. Steak and Shake tastes good. Shake Shack tastes good. I think they all taste amazing. I just don't eat them every day because I know it's not healthy, but I'm not the type of person that's like, oh, this McDonald's tastes terrible. Like, I think it tastes awesome. It's just like, I know this is not good for my stomach and body, but yeah. Someone said, what am I smoking? I don't smoke marijuana anymore. I'm retired, but I did at one point in my life, but I've been sober. I mean, I drink like once in a while, but I'm not an alcoholic. I drink like once every couple of weeks, sort of. I went on a cruise and I drank like 2 nights out of the whole night. I don't really do that stuff. So I'm just naturally having a good time. Or if you think I'm slow, maybe I'm just naturally slow. I don't know. Freezer burn or bad meat, the burger will be awful. Yeah, but if there's freezer burn on it, that's on you. Maybe that's the problem at these bars. They just have shitty freezer burn meat or something. McDonald's sucks, bro. It sucks for your body, but do I think the taste is bad? No, I don't know. I think McDonald's fries taste amazing and like the burger tastes amazing, but I wish I could lie to you and be like, yeah, I don't like the taste of it. No, I absolutely do. I just don't eat it often because I know it's not like it's gonna make me fat. Then I'm gonna be fat. And if I'm fat, then I can't tell other people not to be fat, you know? And I don't want to lose that privilege in America. It's nice to have leverage over half of the country and not be as fat as half of the country. If I get fatter than most of the country, then it's just like, I got to find a new gig. I got to be like, I got to be like a QAnon guy at that point and just be like, trust the plan. Trust the plan, man. I'm like, okay. Trump posted a Q thing the other day. He's like, no one can stop what's coming. This is God's plan. It's like, you guys can't even release the Epstein files. What are you doing? I mean, hopefully Trump has some big thing, but I'm not that guy who sees that post. I look at that post and I'm like, cringe. But then there's some people in the comments, they're like, anomaly, you used to be so positive and now you're such a negative Nancy. How dare you, anomaly? Anomaly, you used to call out Joe Biden's spending bills and you were based. But now when you say Trump's printing too much money, you remind me of Kamala Harris, anomaly. What happened to you? What happened to you? You're saying literally the same thing you said 5 years ago, but I'm going to pretend like you changed this week, even though you've said that literally your entire career. It's like, dude, I've liked Thomas Massey for 5 years now. I post like a Thomas Massey post and they're like, dude, something's new with you this year. I'm like, what have you been watching? Like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like I'm really not that different. I mean, maybe I'm different than I was in like 2018, but I feel like the last 5 years have been very similar, right? I don't know. They're like, I love like reading the Facebook comments now because I don't get mad at it. I'm in a good place, so I'm not letting it bother me, but it's pretty funny. Like just seeing people get like really mad at the I'll just be like, what do you think of this? And they're like, you're angry. I'm like, I literally asked you what you thought of it. How am I mad? But okay. Someone said, I rage against the machine with my lefty ideology. I know you're being sarcastic, but I get it. Someone said Q is Bolshevik Operation Trust 2.0. I think so. Venison is vastly overrated, somebody said. I don't think venison is overrated because I don't feel like anybody overrates venison. Like you never hear anybody like, dude, you want to go get some venison burgers down at the shop? Nobody, like the only people that eat venison are like people who hunt and also people who are adjacent of people who hunt and people who live in places where people hunt. You know what I'm saying? Like you don't go to like 99% of restaurants don't have venison. The last time I ate venison was from my friend who hunt. He killed a deer and then, you know, made it into like a bunch of salami and stuff, and it was fire. I like venison, but I wouldn't say it's overrated because I've never heard someone in the last 10 years be like, you know what's the best meat? Venison. Nobody says that. Even people who eat venison won't tell you that it's like the best meat ever, and that's why like you don't see it barely anywhere. So I'm saying fact check false. Venison's not overrated because nobody overrates it in the first place. But the last venison I had was like very good, but I wouldn't say it's not better than beef. If it was better than beef, everyone would be eating it all the time. You know, and people are like, oh, this is better than this. It's not better. Everyone eats beef. Everybody eats pork. Everybody eats chicken. Not everybody, but it's everywhere. Chicken's everywhere. Pork's everywhere. Beef's everywhere. Why? Because those are the three things that people like the taste of the most. Like if duck was as good as everyone pretends like it is, there'd be duck everywhere. But duck, it's not as good. Even lamb. Lamb's cool. You know, shout out to the Greeks. Lamb is fire, but I don't know. Is it as good as beef? I don't think so, or else there'd be more people eating lamb all the time. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's how I think about it. It's the cleanest meat out there. Venison is awesome. I enjoyed thoroughly the sausage I had from venison. I thought it was excellent. But you know, anything fresh is better than something at the supermarket. Like you get fresh made venison, it's probably going to taste better than like salami that's been sitting at the supermarket for like 3 weeks. But what do I know? What do I know? You should contact the Jimmy Dorso. They have the same views as you and they love guests. I've been wanting to talk to Jimmy for like almost a decade now. So I mean, they know who I am. They use my tweets on their show all the time. Their co-hosts talk about me, and I'm not saying this in any sort of negative way. I like Jimmy. I like his co-hosts. I'd love to talk to him. I just don't know how to set it up. If anyone knows how to set it up, let me know. I want to say this too. For a while, it was hard for me to like facilitate every sort of email and stuff because I've been busy and just doing a million things. But I've been building a team. You see, I got a better background. I've been using better cameras for most of my videos. So I'm starting to do things more professionally and try to move it like a well-oiled machine that's not powered by artificial intelligence. But you know, jokes aside, well, it's also not. But yeah, anyway, I don't know where I was going with that. But I have somebody that's helping with deals and emails now. Of course, in the end, it'll be me. But I just couldn't like go through all my emails. I am answering emails now. So if anybody wants to advertise on the podcast, if anybody wants social media consulting or help with their social media marketing, if they work for any sort of big or small businesses, you know, I'll just give you guys a background real quick. But the website is dreamrarebiz.com, DreamRareBiz.com, dreamrarebiz.com. Hit up the email and we'll answer you. I have a team and it'll get to me eventually if it's an actual deal. But before social media, I worked in social media as well. So I have a lot of experience like out of college and I was in Los Angeles. Like I needed to make money and I didn't know what I was really doing. So I worked in social media. I worked at certain agencies. I worked with marketing firms. I worked for individual businesses. I worked for movie companies. I did a lot of different things over the course of 7-8 years. And everywhere I worked, not only did I help them, but I learned new stuff. And then also, then I did it for myself. I mean, the proof is in the pudding. You look at my Twitter, you look at my Instagram, you look at my Facebook, you look at my YouTube. A lot of people are big on something, but most people, they're not good on everything. And I'm not great on everything, but if you look at like my Twitter is massive, my Facebook is huge, my YouTube is good. Like I'm doing well on everything because I know what I'm doing. So, you know, if you want help and you have any sort of business that needs social media help, hit me up because I feel like I know the game as well, and I'm making like a course, but I worked for social media agencies and firms at a certain point, and I'm not pointing the blame at everyone, but a lot of times they're professionals at making a sale, but they don't really know what they're doing. So, you know, I really know what I'm doing. And I feel like the competition, like they sell you on something, or they're like, I'll do SEO, I'll do this for this much. And then if you pull the curtain back, they're really not working that hard and they're really not doing that much. So the more you know about social media, whether you're doing it, whether you hire someone to do it, whether you have like somebody at your business doing it, like an intern or somebody that you can like double up their job, the more you know, the less you could get tricked. And I recommend everybody know a little bit more, because like, even if you don't know and you're like, I'll hire this person or I'll pay these people this much to do it, it's going to be easier for them to not do that much if you have no baseline of what they're even doing. And I find like in social media, especially the older generation that has most of the money and resources, you know, they don't understand social media. So they either don't do it or they let someone else do it, which is fine. But it's you need someone to know something, because the more you know, the easier it will be to get the most out of your staff and business. So check out dreamrarebiz.com. Someone said most game is odd, but wild caught seafood is fire. I'm not a huge seafood fan, but that's unpopular. I just don't like it. Tony said turns you into a sellout. What turns me into a sellout? Running my own business and trying to get consulting clients on my own, so I don't have to take money from super PACs and politicians. Like, how does that make me a sellout? I don't know. Even with ads, I'll turn down an ad if I don't believe in it. Like, I've turned down probably like 90% of ads that would want to advertise with me because I'll not do it. I would never advertise gambling or a gambling app. Just a personal thing about me, not that you need to know. I like gambling. I mean, it's not a good habit or anything, but I think I'm good at it, or I enjoy it. Since I was a kid, I wanted to be like a professional poker player. It's not something I'm proud of, but it's just the truth about who I am as a human being. So I like Texas Hold'em. I like playing gambling a little bit, but I would never promote gambling, like, because I just don't think it's moral and I don't think it's good, and I would feel bad doing it. So it's like a lot of money is in gambling apps and stuff, and I would never push that on people. Even if they gave me $1 million, $10 million, I'm telling you right now, I would never do it. Doesn't matter how much they would pay. How's that make me a sellout? Most people you look in this industry, they're selling gambling on everything all the time. Everybody's pushing gambling. I wouldn't do it even if I had to lose more money than I've ever made in my life. So I'm not I would say, not only am I not a sellout, but I'm not going to sell out. And the way that I can not sell out is because I have to make a business model. If I don't have a business model, it's like I can't do what I'm doing. So I'm trying to really be smart with what I'm doing, who I advertise with, etc. Someone said, then why do you gamble? I don't know. I mean, my whole life is a gamble. So why do I live this way? I don't know. When I was going to be a rapper, everyone's like, that's a gamble. I dropped out of college. That's a gamble. I moved to Los Angeles with nothing. I lived with people that said they were going to manage me. I've made a lot of gambles in my life. So I don't know. I've lived a risky life. And I think when it comes to gambling, I'm strategic. Like, I'm not like, I'm going to be bankrupt and lose all my money. I'm more like, I try to be smart with it and strategic and analytic, but it's definitely not like the greatest thing. But one of my goals in life, I think when I was young, I wanted to win the World Series of Poker, and I still do, but I'm not going to play in the main event, but I'm going to play in other tournaments. I want to win. I think I can win. And if I do, then I win a bracelet and a bunch of money. So it's not like a great proud moment of mine, but it's just what I want to do. It's a side quest. I think I could do it. I mean, the stock market, yeah, I do the stock market too. Some people consider that gambling. Some people consider that investing. But with the stock market, it's another thing. Like, I'm not out here just being like, I'm like, I'm thinking about it. I'm researching. I'm looking at their numbers, where I think they're going in 5 years. It's exciting. I don't know. I get excitement out of that sort of stuff. It doesn't really stress me out. I mean, if your stock tanks, then it gets really stressful and you lose a bunch of money. But I don't know. It's like, I do enjoy that. Someone said Jeopardy. I love Jeopardy. I'm obsessed with trivia and I want to be on Jeopardy one day. So that's another side quest of mine. I told people that recently. I'm not smart enough for Jeopardy yet. I'm not close, but I'm getting closer. And in order to be on Jeopardy, you need to know like everything. So the next 3 years, I'm spending thousands of hours to try to learn everything. Like, and if I win money on Jeopardy, then who's laughing then? It's a stupid side hustle until it's not. So, Worst comes to worst, I never get on Jeopardy and I just know a lot of stuff. Best comes to best, I win millions of dollars on Jeopardy, and it's a accomplishment. It's a far-fetched one, but I'm going for it. Someone said, like, drinking or smoking pot or fishing, anything too much isn't good for you. Well, I don't drink or smoke really anymore, so that's not a habit of mine. Did I see Shapiro talking about Theo Vaughn? Listen. I mean, listen. When you call me Ben Shapiro, that's blood libel and that's anti-Semitism. That's like really hateful and it's against the hate speech laws in America. Yeah, no, I saw the clip of him talking about Theo Vaughn. I mean, part of it, in my opinion, was kind of funny, but also like, I know he's mad at Theo because Theo said he's sad that Palestinians are getting killed. And Ben's like, listen, we don't care. So obviously, like my bias is to be like, Ben Shapiro sucks. But I'm not going to lie. I thought his roast of Theo Vaughn was kind of funny. He's like, listen, Theo Vaughn's 45 years old. He dresses like a child and wears backwards hats. And I was like, I thought that was kind of funny. I'm not going to lie. Like, obviously, I like Theo, and I'm not trying to like make fun of him because I think Theo's awesome. But I did think that was kind of funny. Like, Ben could be kind of funny sometimes. He's like, you're 45 years old. You wear backwards hats. You dress like a child. Like, I don't really care what you say. And I'm like, I mean, it's kind of true. It's kind of funny. But also Ben does care what he says. But, I don't know. I thought it's a little funny side beef. It's like Theo and Ben. It doesn't really have to do with me. I'll say I like Theo more, but I'm not going to act like Ben lost in the first round. It went to the scorecards. It's up to who the judges are. But I mean, come on, that was kind of funny. Him saying that Theo is like a 45-year-old who dresses like a kid and wears a backwards hat. And then I say I say Ben Shapiro dresses like when he wears his little baby jean jacket. I always make the joke that Ben Shapiro wanted to get like a tougher look because he was too nerdy. So they took Ben Shapiro to Oshkosh Bagosh and got him like a baby jean jacket to put on. And he's like, listen, I got a jean jacket. I'm an adult. I have facial hair now. Listen, I mean, Pfizer lied to me. He's like, the government lied. I mean, it's not my fault. Who would have known that Pfizer and the government lie? It's like your job as a journalist, if you even pretend to do that. I don't know what Ben is, a personality. You didn't know Pfizer and the government lied? And you think putting on an Oshkosh Bagosh jean jacket that you got at Baby Gap is going to trick me into thinking that you're some sort of intellectual? I'm sorry, but I'm not another one of these idiots that just has no clue and's like, I trust that person. I trust that person. Your Baby Gap Oshkosh Bagosh jacket's not going to trick me. And it's like with Jordan Peterson too. Like, I'm not going to act like I'm the smartest person in the world because I recognize game and I know when someone else is really intelligent, and I love to learn from somebody who knows more than me. But like with Jordan Peterson, I got that guy down to a T. You were good at debating feminists, fact. You were good at debating liberals, fact. But everything else, he's really not that good at. So it's like, I'm not one of these people that you just can use big words and, act like an academic liberal professor and I'm going to fall for it, where I'm like, he's so much smarter than me. It's like, he's not saying anything. If you ask him, do you believe in God? He questions the entire sentence. What do you mean by do? What do you mean by you? Bro. I've already done this before, but it's just like, do you believe? That has a deep meaning. God has a deep meaning. Do does not have a deep meaning. It means exactly what you think it means in the sentence, and no one thinks otherwise. You is you, Jordan Peterson, in this context, and that's obvious. He like, it's like he's so dumb, but he just acts smart. I don't fall for it. Not for the jean jacket, not for the academic shit lib who pretends to be like, conservative because he probably like shines Ben Shapiro shoes or something. It's just like, do you believe in God? Oh, you're quite something, you little youngster. It's like, first of all, why is he so angry talking to like a bunch of 20-year-old like atheists? Like he like, even in the ones where the people are being like pretty polite with them, because some of them were like being shit lib, like little scumbag kids, but they were making fun of them, which was funny. But some of the kids were being like super respectful, and like they're like, okay, hypothetically, like Dr. Peterson, like, what do you think? What do you mean? He's like blowing a gasket. It's like, bro, why are you so angry, dude? Like, I get being flustered and mad if a kid's being a dick to you, but like some of these kids are being super chill. They're just like, what do you think about what do you mean by that? It's like, dude, relax, bro. Like, why is he's such a miserable guy? He's so miserable. Like, why are you so mad? You're like, he looks like he's like, and they're like, I just wanted to know, like, do you believe that Jesus is your Lord and Savior? Well, Cardinal Newman. Dude, I looked up Cardinal Newman because he kept talking about Cardinal Newman. I have no idea who Cardinal Newman is. So I started looking up Cardinal Newman, and I'm asking like an AI engine. I'm like, what are the pros and cons of Cardinal Newman? Like, can you give me a rundown of people who liked him, people who didn't? So it says like, Cardinal Newman was a legend, blah, blah, blah. I think he was like Catholic. And then I asked the cons, and they said a lot of people in Christianity say that Cardinal Newman was like ushering in the liberalness of Christianity, because for thousands of years, God had a very defined term within the Catholic Church and within the Christian religion. And Cardinal Newman, I guess, was this guy that Jordan Peterson claims came around and said, Christ is consciousness, So there were a lot of people in the Catholic Church and in the Christian religion that felt that Cardinal Newman was basically like a door to liberal Christianity, in a sense, where it's like it's getting like hippy dippy and it's not getting down to the fundamental, religious, I would say, traditionalism of Christianity. So it's like the kid's asking Jordan Peterson, like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, Cardinal Newman thinks this. Yeah. And the lesbian down the street thinks that, God wants to paint rainbows on all the kids. Like, you understand? Like, it's like his logic was just like so stupid. It's like, okay, you found a cardinal 100 years ago who brought liberalism into Christianity to some extent. Like, what does that have to do with the question? Like, and like, it's not like he's just talking about it. It's like he's getting mad. Oh, Cardinal Newman said this. All right, bro. And Mr. Rogers said this, and Candace Owens said this, and Ben Shapiro said this, and Pastor John Locke said this, and Richard Nixon said this, and the Pope John Paul said this, and then Pope Francis said this. We're all saying something. Pope Francis said to open up your borders. What the hell does that have to do with what you think about God? Like, why? Okay, and there's a female pastor down the street who says that women should be pastors too, and then there's a gay church down that street, and then like, Pastor Newman said this. It's like he's like the teacher from Charlie Brown getting mad at you. It's like, wah, 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 wah. No wonder the kids are liberal, because they look at Jordan Peterson and they're like, dude, this guy sucks. But whatever. Anyway, let's keep this under 2 hours. It's very important. It's not that important, but it's what I'm gonna do. It's what I want to do. Peterson has PMS. He's like a broken spirit with a giant ego. He reminds me of like a lobotomized person. Like I view Jordan Peterson like he walks around with Joe Biden eyes. You know what I'm saying? Like, and they're like, all right, Mr. Peterson, time to get into your ugly Joker suit that's like red on one side and green on another side. And he's like, okay, I'll wear my suit. Time to meet with Netanyahu, Jordan Peterson. Time to debate the liberal kids. And he's just like, okay, here I go in the suit that I totally picked out for myself. Like, he seems like a broken soul that's just being like Joe Biden'd around the media, where I'm sure it's under his own being, but it's like he doesn't seem like a man who has any joy, who has any Holy Spirit, who has anything. Like, he seems like a broken, brittle, empty, angry vessel in a Joker suit. Like, and he's been lobotomized or something. Like, they replaced his brain with like whatever they wanted it to be. That's just how he seems to me. I'm not saying it's that way, but and his suits are so ugly. Like, it's like, I'm not going to claim that I'm the biggest fashion icon, but I do think, and I might be wrong, but I do think when I try and when I'm actually like trying to go out on the town or whatever, I do think I have good style. I'm not like you're not going to see me at Paris Fashion Week. I'm not like a young Yeezy or something out here trying new styles. I'm pretty basic for the most part. I'm not like I'm not trying some I'm not wearing like a plastic suit or something on the runway, but I have good style. I have good taste. I'm not a jealous person. Like if I see a guy who has something cooler than I'm wearing or something like that I never thought of, I'm like, that's cool. I'm not a hater. I don't look at other guys that are dressed up or chicks that dress up, and I'm not out here just being like, I hate them because they look so great and I don't. Like, that's what people always accuse me of when I say these things. Like, oh, you're just jealous of Jordan Peterson. If Jordan Peterson wore a cool suit, I'd be like, that's a cool suit. He dresses like a psychopath. Like when I look at his suits, it's ugly. It's like looking at a new modern building where they build like some like obese character in the middle of like New York City that's like sweating, and they're like, this is a Picasso. Not only is this not a Picasso, but it's ugly and it's weird. You know what I'm saying? It's like they build like a giant dildo in the street, and they're like, this is for feminism. I'm like, you just built a dildo on the street. Like, not only is it not cool, interesting, or impressive, but it's just downright creepy. I look at like a Michelangelo sculpture or a great painting from history or a Roman temple, and then you look at one of these modern houses that they put up as fast as possible to make as much money as possible. You're not going to gaslight me into thinking that it looks good. Jordan Peterson's his suits are ugly. It's like a statement against God and nature. It's just like, this is ugly and I know it's ugly and I'm going to wear it confidently anyway. Like, it's just ugly, and it is like evil and Joker. I'm not saying it makes him bad, but it's not, his fashion is not good. You know what I'm saying? Those suits are like just ugly and stupid. Anyway, let's keep going. So everything, you're like, people always say that to me too, of like Trump or anyone. If I say anything, they're like, you're jealous. I'm like, you're just jealous of Charlie Kirk. Because like in my video, I always be like, yeah, I'm not a huge fan of him. And they're like, that's because you're jealous. I'm being honest. I'm not a fan of him. I don't think he's a good public speaker. I don't think he's honest. And the reason I really don't like Charlie Kirk, besides the fact that I'm just not a fan of his like speaking style and attitude, it's because I know who Charlie Kirk is. And Charlie Kirk is a guy who runs multiple organizations now, but I believe a nonprofit. And I know that they take millions upon tens of millions of dollars in donor money. And I know that the reason Charlie Kirk acts the way he does is because he's relying on donor money. So it's like, I don't listen to people that take money and act like they're balancing the books. You know what I'm saying? When I listen to a podcast, I'm impressed by someone who's raw and real, not by somebody who's like a Marco Rubio in training. You know what I'm saying? He's like, yeah, I know that's bad, but at the same time, we have to protect our greatest ally because I make a lot of donor money from them. But if I didn't make this donor money, I wouldn't be talking like this. I'd be like Candace Owens if I wasn't taking this money, but I am. So I have to pretend like, la, 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 it's wrong, it's right, it's right. That's why I don't like Charlie Kirk, because he's basically balancing the books between him being a Christian, non-Jewish American who has Christian American values, but then him also sucking down tens of millions of dollars of donor money for him to even be a thing in politics. Without it, he wouldn't be a thing. So he has to be like, la, 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 la. It's like, it has nothing to do with jealousy or like, oh, he's so great, I wish I was him. I don't wish I was him. I would never want to be him. I don't envy people that are not free enough to like tell the truth. So it's like, that's what I don't like about him. It's just like, he's, why would you listen to Charlie Kirk when you could just listen to Candace Owens? Candace Owens is a funnier, more intelligent, more witty, better speaker. She's not constantly like yelling. Like, Candace is better every way than Charlie on every level of entertainment, speaking ability, wittiness. Like if it were a video game, Candace is better than Charlie in everything outside of her ideology, just off of like me rating how good of a speaker or podcaster they are. But then also Candace is not constrained by the same donor, playing both sides that Charlie is. So it's like, why listen to, when there's better people out there, why listen to somebody who's worse on every level of entertainment, let alone also worse on every level of compromising politically and for, saving face in the Republican movement? It's like, there's no value there for me. I know a lot of people who don't like Tucker Carlson, and a lot of people love Tucker. But I like his podcast sometimes because it's like, I understand some people don't like Tucker. They think he's sold out. Some people think he's working for somebody and they're like, he's not the truth. I'm not sitting here defending Tucker because you have every right to feel how you want. But Tucker has a lot of really good guests on. And they say a lot of things that you won't hear on Fox News and you won't hear on Ben Shapiro's podcast. So I'm always looking for value. It's like, I'm not looking for Tucker for guidance, but I do find his podcast entertaining. And I do think like Colonel Douglas McGregor has value. I do think that, listening to certain people that Tucker has on are interesting. It's all about value. It's like, I don't get value out of somebody who's just playing the fence all the time. Like, I would consider, even though Tucker Carlson plays the fence a little more, I guess, Tucker is way more courageous, way more outspoken, and way more authentic than Charlie Kirk. And it's not even close. Like, I think Charlie Kirk holds back way more than Tucker holds back. And Tucker holds back like a little bit. I just don't like people that I know are not saying what they would say if they weren't getting paid. You get what I'm saying? It's like, if Charlie didn't do what he does and he didn't have to work for donors and work in nonprofits and work in Republican politics, I think there'd be a different Charlie Kirk that sounded just like Candace Owens. And the thing is, like, not to brag, but I already know what I'm saying 5 years ago is what they're going to say in 5 years anyway. 6 years ago, Charlie Kirk was crying about people. Oh, they're talking about demographics. Oh, they're talking about legal immigration. And now Charlie Kirk says all the same things. It's like he cries for his donors and for the establishment about what the far right is saying. And then Charlie Kirk becomes that 5 years later. It's like, I don't need someone to like close doors for me and then basically copy what I said 7 years later and act like they're some sort of hero. It's like, they're just whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, Candace is very courageous. I think Tucker in some ways is courageous. I mean, Jake Shields and Dan Bilzerian are very courageous. I mean, you might not agree with them, but Dan Bilzerian says a lot of very edgy stuff. Like, Jake has a lot of really interesting people on the podcast that have been blacklisted by media. And even if you don't like the podcast or don't like what he's doing, I think that the fact that he's having on people that are blacklisted is in some way serving a purpose for the First Amendment. Because if you have the First Amendment and everybody's afraid to interview everybody because they don't want their channel taken down, somebody has to like exercise their First Amendment and allow people to have a platform. One of my pet peeves is when people say on the right, it happens enough on the left, so it's always annoying, but it's like, why are you platforming this person? Why are you platforming the Tates? Why are you it's like, what do you mean by platforming? The First Amendment platforms everyone, and a journalist and a podcaster should be able to talk to anybody. The correct way to frame this, as I've said before, is why didn't you ask Andrew Tate better questions? Why didn't you challenge him more? That's the right way to frame it. Not why did Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson platform Andrew Tate? Because they should platform Andrew Tate. But what you should be saying is, why not challenge them more? Why not ask them tougher questions? That's what you want. If you want people to not platform somebody, then essentially you're asking for everyone to work under the same blacklist, which is what a lot of people are doing. I say that person's bad, so I don't think you should even be allowed to talk to them or humanize them or have them on your podcast. And the reason that they do this, like with Zelensky and Putin, I have no dog in this race. But if you listen to Zelensky and then you listen to Putin, it's like they know that most people are going to like Putin more, so they don't want him to be podcasted. Because if you listen to a podcast of him speaking, now you're allowing him to say his side of the story. But the entire military-industrial complex and U.S. politics, foreign policy, is to dehumanize one of the side. If we can dehumanize the side, they can essentially genocide them and wipe them out and steal their land. If we can dehumanize this one side, then we can just get as many Europeans killed as possible, and you won't even care because you think you're beating up the bad guy. So they don't want both sides platformed, because if you platform both sides, you'll realize there's two sides to every story. And if you realize there's two sides to every story, it unravels trillions of dollars of propaganda for them to say that there's only one side of this story. There's only what we say, and everything else is hate speech. It's like, it's not true. So that's what they're trying to do. Or else you would frame it as, you have every right to platform these people, but what you should have done is you should have done a tougher interview. But they've tried to blacklist Russia and Putin. They've tried to say Russian media is blacklisted, he's blacklisted, and if you even talk to him, you are him. That's never been journalism in America. They're trying to normalize blacklisting. Even back in the day, mainstream media used to interview every foreign leader and be tough on them, but interview them. It's this new phenomenon of censorship where they're like, you shouldn't even be allowed to talk to that person. Says who? Says who? No one should be blacklisted from the media. But what should happen is people should ask tougher questions. And the problem with a lot of media, left wing or right wing, is nobody asks good questions. And this is the difference. And where it's becoming now is most people aren't doing journalism, they're doing podcasting, right? And on a podcast, everybody just wants to hang out and bro out. Okay, but someone's got to ask real questions. So it's like if everyone's a Republican and everybody likes Donald Trump and nobody wants to ask him tough questions, now we have no real journalists asking good questions. Like someone, I podcast, but I also do video journalism. So if I have somebody important on, do I want to just hang out with them? Of course. Sometimes will I hang out with certain people and be chill? Absolutely. But I also think it's kind of my responsibility if I have on like a world leader, a politician, I have to ask good questions. I have to ask tough questions. Like if I don't, I feel like I'm doing a bad job, But most people don't think that. They're just like, let me just be nice to everybody so then I could get invited places. Yeah, I get it. I'm a nice guy, but if I have on a politician who runs the country, who's printing $20 trillion, who's signing bills that are taking away my liberty, who's pushing executive orders, I think it's my duty, not just as a journalist and a podcaster, but also as an American citizen. I got to ask this guy a question. I don't care if it's Ron DeSantis, Donald Trump, Thomas Massey. If they come on my show, I gotta ask a few challenging questions, or at least a few questions that lead to somewhere that matters. Like it's not going to be like, Trump, do you like hamburgers or hot dogs more? Yeah, that's an interesting question, but like there's got to be some questions about COVID. There's got to be some questions about war. There's got to be some questions about lobbying money. There's got to be some questions about donors. And that's why I'll probably never get an interview, because the entire media sphere is to create this false illusion that there's two sides. You're watching CNN, you're watching Fox News, and people who watch both, they don't even realize that they almost have identical foreign policies on the media outside of a few people. And if they don't have identical foreign policies on the media, then they're having discussions that don't matter. And then the uniparty is doing whatever it wants anyway. Or, there's a lot of examples of this where it's like, oh, this is a big, beautiful bill because we said so. Is it really though? So there's a lot of games being played, and people don't know that watch media, but they're not aware of all the games being played. They think it's just like it's left versus right, and the left does this and the right fights back, or it's just the right and the left does this. No, it's really not. It's like the left sucks completely. Everything you think about the left is true. However, like Republican media is not what you think it is, and it's by design. I'm going to make a video in a little bit, but since this is a live stream and I like to basically just get everything that I have off my mind, when you watch these Fox News interviews with Dan Bongino and Kash Patel, they ask the same question every time. Did Epstein really kill himself? They say, yes, he did. I read all the files that the deep state showed me, and the deep state said that he killed himself. So if the deep state tells me that, then that means that it's like, all right, we get it. So what does this do when that's the only question they ask? First of all, it makes it between either Epstein killed himself or Epstein got killed. So you're like, Epstein killed himself, Epstein got killed. Okay, I'm not saying there's another option, but everybody knows there's another option. What's the other option besides he killed himself or he got killed? That's the option that they're not even talking about, because that's the option that they don't want you talking about. If you talk about whether he killed himself or got killed, now you're living in their arena that doesn't matter. Also, what have they not really asked him about? Okay, let's just say he killed himself, since you said so, Dan Bongino. Why were the cameras off? Why were the guards sleeping? Do you have transparency on why the guards were sleeping? Because the guards weren't sleeping. So if the guards were sleeping, there was something behind that. Do you notice that Fox News is not asking those questions? They'll ask questions to close up a situation, to be the fake opposition. We're the opposition to the Epstein thing. Here's a basic question. And then everyone can argue about that question. Why not ask them, why were the guards sleeping? I would say there's between a 5 to 10% chance, if that, probably less, that the guards just fell asleep. So if there's a 5 to 10% chance that the guards fell asleep and a 90% chance that there's some sort of malevolence involved, ask about that. If the cameras weren't working like they claimed, and now they're saying that there is a camera, but I guarantee you it's not going to be a camera that matters. Who turned the cameras off? I would argue that there's probably a less than 1% chance of that. So what happened? Most people that have homes now, they have a Ring camera or some sort of camera, right? How many times say you have a Ring camera at your house? How many times has your Ring camera malfunctioned? I would argue if you found 50 people that had a Ring camera, they would tell you that their Ring cameras never malfunction because they're built to work or else they don't work. Even if they don't work for one night and a crime happens, then it doesn't work. So what's the chances of it not working for the one night that a crime happened? If your Ring camera works every night of the week for 5 years, but it doesn't work 1 year, and then somebody committed a crime in your house that you couldn't record, the chances are overwhelmingly that someone was involved in the unplugging of it to commit the crime. This is a Ring camera that you could buy on Google and Amazon. So what about the highest security prison that they probably should have, where they took the highest security prisoner in the last 20 years? Are they using a Ring camera? Probably not, but if they were, it should work. If they're not using a Ring camera, which I guarantee you they're not, they should have higher quality cameras and multiple cameras and 50 cameras or 10 cameras. So it's obviously bullshit. I don't need Dan Bongino or Dan Fedgino or Fed Patel or whatever their names are to tell me about the Epstein stuff. I'm not a moron. People's Ring cameras work. My cell phone camera works. Like that, things don't malfunction like that. And this is on an everyday life with zero stakes. So you're telling me with the highest stakes in the world and one of the highest stake facilities in the world that you just have one camera that malfunctions and a guard fell asleep? How stupid do you think I am? Or how stupid do you think the American people are? Maybe they are stupid, but it's like, I'm not an idiot. It's like there's a 99.99999% chance that they're not telling the truth about this. There's a 0.0001 chance that they're telling us everything we need to know. And either their IQs are so low that they actually believe it and their egos are being fed with their new security clearance, or they're just playing the game. Either way, it's like, dude, do you see what I'm doing? You're not going to see that on Fox News. You're not going to see that in an interview with Dan Fedgino and Fed Patel. Nobody's going to ask him these questions because they're like, did he kill himself? It's like, how did a guard, like how many cameras were, ready? Here's what a journalist would do. How did the cameras malfunction? How many cameras were there? How did they malfunction? What kind of cameras are they? Because a Ring camera works 99.999% of the time, and average people who buy shitty things from China and Amazon don't have malfunctions with their camera. So how the hell did you in this prison? What kind of cameras were they? How did they turn off? Where's the power switch? There's a real journalist. Look, hey guys, Sherlock Holmes is on the case instead of fake opposition Zionist, boomer tard media where people watch it. They're like, yeah, they really grilled them. How did they grill them? They're just fake opposition. If you want to run things, you don't invest in one party, you invest in both parties. If you want to control the narrative, if you own the WWE, you don't bet $1 million on Hulk Hogan and have no stake in the Iron Sheik. You control both of them, and then you win and make money regardless of who wins, and you also control the script. Everyone knows what's going to happen in the WWE, who runs the WWE, because they control the script. They control the company. They control both sides, and they're both actors. If you think politics isn't at least wildly similar to that, you're wrong, especially with all the evidence we have. So it's like the left and the right exist to basically create a narrative that's going nowhere. So that's why I talk about the right so much. The left to me doesn't matter because they're not doing anything of value. They have no value. They're too dishonest. They're too politically correct. I don't ignore them out of respect. Like, oh, I don't have time to criticize the left. It's low-hanging fruit. It's sub 90 IQ level content. Just write them off completely. There's no value there. Let's move on to adult issues. Okay, let's get to the right. The party that makes more sense. The party that's supposed to help us. If they're fake, we're not winning ever because the other side's not clearly like, I'm not like, oh, Hillary might help us. Hillary's not, oh, Joe Biden might do what we want. No, he's not. It's going to be the right, if anything. So it's like, that's why I focus so much on the right. And a lot of people don't get it. They're like, oh, you don't talk about the left that much. Everyone else does. I talk about the right because if the right isn't really on our side and the right's not doing what we want after you all just voted for them, then our chances of succeeding are 0%. It's never happening. I'm not negative. I'm happy. I'm having a good time and I'm very enjoying myself working. I'm enjoying my job. I'm not like I'm not like bitter or jealous. It's just like, this is like how politics works. I realize it's WWE to a large extent, and you still buy into the characters. Like most people are getting it, but like, especially, I'm not trying to be rude, but a lot of the over 40, 50, 60 crowd, they're still buying it hook, line, and sinker. Not everybody. There's thousands of boomers, tens of thousands of boomers, hundreds of thousands that understand what I'm saying. They get it. Their age is not blocking their vision. People like G. Edward Griffin, he's 93, he gets it. I'm not saying it. But if you look at the demographics, it's like there's something to be said about the majority of the over 50 Republican crowd. They've got fooled their entire lives, but they don't want the show to end. They believe in Trump. They would probably cut off their own family member if their family member doesn't like Trump. It's like, they're like, what changed? What do you mean? I don't like, everyone has a right to view it how they want, but I truly believe, like some people believe you shouldn't vote at all, right? And they hate that I like to vote sometimes. And they're like, I hate you because you vote. You have every right to feel that way. I don't agree. I get where you're coming from, and we agree on a lot of things, but I don't think voting matters that much, but I also don't think it's like the worst idea to vote. I think it's a horrible idea to vote and think that that matters so much and that you should like get mad when people tell you things. That's kind of crazy. But to me, some elections, I'm going to be inspired to vote. Others, I might just stay home. You know what I'm saying? But it's like I'm not shocked that Pam Bondi isn't doing what people want her to do. She was put there to not do, like she was put there to plug that hole, in my opinion. Matt Gaetz was too big of a wild card, so they replaced Matt Gaetz with Pam Bondi because she has experience overlooking the Epstein stuff. Like people are like, I can't believe Pam Bondi did this. What do you mean you can't believe it? She was picked because when Trump picked Matt Gaetz, it was too risky. Matt Gaetz is not sold out enough. It's like he's goofy enough to play along with it, and he's not like the most honorable person I've ever seen. So I'm not telling you Matt Gaetz is like a hero, but he's one of those guys where like he might actually do some really base things. So they had to get rid of him, and they did. And then they replaced him with Pam Bondi, who has decades, or at least over a decade of experience, helping to basically not look into Epstein stuff in Florida. That's why she was chosen. So, Dan Bongino, no disrespect to the guy, because there are parts of me that has seen things from Dan Bongino I really like, especially like 6 years ago. I was a way bigger Dan Bongino fan. I thought he was really talented and interesting, like in 2019 and stuff. But in the last 5 years, like everything I hear from Dan Bongino, I do this professionally, so it's like I'm not impressed. I feel like Tucker impresses me sometimes, Candace impresses me, other people impress me. Dan is not impressive. He's either not that smart, or he's like, just, I don't know. Like when he got chosen, I'm not like, oh dude, this is the moment. I'm like, I have zero expectations for this guy because I'm not really that impressed by him anyway. So long story short, I'm not shocked by any of this. Kash Patel, everybody liked him, but I really didn't pay attention to him at all. And I feel like because I do this so much and I see everything because I'm always on social media working, if I don't care about somebody, there's probably like a reason. Like everyone was so obsessed with Kash Patel for the last like 4 years before he was in. He never caught my radar to want to listen to a single thing he said. There's got to be a reason for that, because I hear almost everything. Like everything that matters, every viral clip that really is important, and everybody that's really good, I usually hear it. And in some cases, I've helped people like blow up. Like Candace will credit me as one of the first person, if not the first person to help her, get massive. So it's like, it's not like I don't see people. Sometimes I see people before everyone sees them and know that they're going to be a superstar before and help them be a superstar. It's like, I see it all when it comes to like content creators. And if Kash Patel was out there and everybody loved him for 3 years and I never once listened to him talk, and if I saw a clip, I never was interested further. I'm not saying he was bad, because I did see some clips of Kash. Like he was telling a lot of truth. I guess it's just like, I have like a spirit where I'm just like, yeah, I don't know. Like when Vivek came out, I was like, yeah, no, this guy is not to be trusted. I knew that right away. So it's like, I'm saying all this to say, I had zero faith in Pam Bondi. I knew she was put there to plug up the hole of Matt Gaetz. I had no faith in Dan Bongino because I've heard him talk for 5 years and I know who he is. And with Kash, I had no expectations. I maybe had higher expectations for him because I didn't know who he was, but I was like, I don't even know who this guy is. Someone said Dan Bilzerian. I've listened to some Dan Bilzerian interviews. I've listened to him talk to Patrick Bet-David. I've heard him talk to Piers Morgan, and I've listened to more Dan than I've listened to Kash Patel in the last 5 years. But yeah, I thought his back and forth with Patrick Bet-David was very interesting, and I came away from it thinking Dan is way more free. Like, whether you agree or disagree with Dan, the way he's saying it, how he's saying it, he seems very free to say whatever he really thinks is happening, no matter how blunt it is. And Patrick is playing like a different game. You know what I'm saying? Dan's like saying things and Patrick's like, whoa, which I understand. Patrick runs a media company and he has his own opinions, but I don't know. I feel like Dan is saying what he thinks, and Patrick and Piers Morgan were like, whoa, I don't know about all that. But what I found interesting in what Patrick and Piers Morgan did in the Dan Bilzerian conversations is I don't think it's your responsibility to agree with everything that Dan Bilzerian says. But here's the thing. If you disagree with what he says, you should be confident enough to say it and make sense. If you can't do that and you're just like throwing out, you shouldn't say that and you sound like a this, then clearly you don't really know what you're talking about. And one thing that I found that Patrick did is when Dan Bilzerian was on his show, I felt like Dan Bilzerian walked all over him. I feel like Dan Bilzerian was the alpha. I feel like he was the leader. He was being more authentic. He was making more sense. And he was like the bigger man in the room. Usually not the case because Patrick kind of likes to, he likes to kind of like control his own show. But I felt like Dan walked all over him, had his way with him. And Patrick said nothing that actually mattered or countered what he said at all. And then when he's not on the show, I feel like then Patrick starts saying like, oh, Candace shouldn't do this because it influenced Dan. And it's like when Dan's in front of you, he destroys you. When Dan's away, you're saying all this stuff about Dan as if you could sit in the same room with him and compete when you can't. So it's like that, that was kind of what I got from that interview is when Dan was in the room, he out-alphaed Patrick. He walked all over him. He had his way with him, and Patrick didn't make a single point that made sense or even countered what Dan said. And anyway, he was just trying to like, basically like walk away from it without making any points that make sense. I disagree with Dan on some things, but if he's sitting in a room with me, I can express what I disagree with without doing it when he's gone and like getting crushed while he's there. So that's kind of what I gathered from that interview. And from the Piers one, Piers was backing away the whole time, calling Dan names, saying he sounded crazy. And now everything that Piers did to Dan is what people are doing to Piers now. So it's like, you understand what I'm saying? It's like Dan, of course, Piers doesn't say everything that Dan was saying, but the same treatment that Dan got from Piers is now the treatment that Piers is getting because, that's just how people act around that topic. So I find those interviews interesting for sure. Dan is a very well-spoken guy and he's very clear with his he's a good public speaker. Some people are, in my opinion, good speakers and some aren't. I don't know if it's God-given. I don't know if it's practice. I don't know if it's decades of experience, but I was never like a Dan fan when he was just like banging women and stuff. Like I always just saw him as like a playboy, like I'm just the guy who fucks a lot of chicks. Like, excuse my language. It's like, okay. Now that he started talking about that topic, I've seen more of him. I never used to listen to him. And I guess I would say I'm impressed by what a good public speaker he is. Like he seems like very clear and very blunt. Like, not that I agree with every single thing he's ever said, but he's not hard. It's not hard to figure out what he's talking about. He's a very good public speaker. I don't see, that's the thing with Charlie, like outside of like the fact that I think he's a little wishy-washy, I just don't think that Charlie's a good speaker. Like there's people that I don't like that I'm like, they're really good at talking. They're really good at, what they do. I don't think Charlie's a good public speaker. I find him very annoying. I used to think Jordan Peterson was an amazing public speaker. Now I think he's like a puddle of like nothing. Like I'm like, dude, he's not good anymore. It's not just that I disagree with him. I just don't think he's a talented public speaker or orator, It's like somebody that has an amazing, beautiful singing voice and someone that has a shit singing voice. Like, it's like, you might be a good lyric writer, but maybe you're like, let's use me as an example. I can't sing very well. I'm a good rapper. I think I'm a great rapper. Others would disagree, but I can't sing like The Weeknd. It's like there's multiple levels of being a good podcaster. It's like having a good voice, having a good flow, being a good orator, and then having some substance. Like they all play a part. Substance is the most important in my opinion, but it's like some people are just not good orators. I don't think Charlie Kirk is a good public speaker. I don't think he's a good debater. I just think he's good at debating like 20-year-olds. But if Charlie were to challenge himself with the people on the right that he disagrees with, like I think Dan Bilzerian would mop the floor with Charlie Kirk. I think he'd absolutely embarrass Charlie Kirk. You know what I'm saying? So Charlie would never debate somebody like a Dan Bilzerian. Charlie will just debate like people that are like 10 years younger than him on a college campus, because then he can look good. But I've seen some recent ones where some smart kids have asked Charlie questions and he didn't look good. So I just find him very unimpressive of an orator, but some others say so. Someone said you sing like Jordan Peterson. Well, that I would hope not. I think that's rude. I stayed longer than 2 hours, but sometimes when you got the energy, like I'm in a good mood, life is good, I got a lot of energy, I feel good, my mind is clear today. I like some days I feel like, I won't say anxiety, but it's like I don't want to sit in front of a camera. I feel anxious. Today I feel completely comfortable. So Charlie's eyes freak me out. What's wrong with his eyes? I mean, his forehead and his gums freak me out. Like his teeth creep me out, but I wouldn't say, I think his eyes are fine. I've never noticed his eyes being weird, but maybe that's because his gums are so crazy and his like head is so weird that, I just focus on that and that creeps me out enough to even, not even look in his eyes. But I wouldn't make fun of his eyes. Let's be nice. His weird gums and his forehead, that's a different story. That was rude, but also true. Can I sing better than P. Diddy? Debatable. I don't know. He doesn't really sing though. He just goes like, bad boy. Yeah. It's Diddy, baby. Yeah. Ha. Woo. Biggie. Yeah. Bad boys. We ain't going nowhere. He doesn't sing. I've never heard Diddy sing. He just kind of like, he works with what he has on and off the recording studio apparently. But love the show. Thanks for it. Thank you, Kay. Someone said Peterson took Benzo Shapiro's. Is that the full name of Benzo? It's Benzo Shapiro's. I'm just kidding. It's not, but my opinion on Nick Fuentes. I mean, for years, people have been using, like, this guy has been, I don't know if I'm using the word pariah right, but he's been like enemy number one of Conservative Inc. And people have played this blacklisting game where I remember I had a friend tell me in 2019, Nick Fuentes retweeted you and now you're far right. And this is why people hate you here. And I was like, I'm a very popular public figure at this point. Why am I getting punished because Nick Fuentes retweeted me? Like, why? How does that make sense? So that's how much the conservative establishment hates Nick, is that I got in trouble just because he retweeted my tweet. Like, that's how much they hate him. With that being said, I probably also got in trouble because after listening to him speak and just hearing his shtick, I told people in like 2020, 2019, I was like, listen, I'm not asking you to agree with everything that Nick says. I'm not asking you to like him or like his personality or his jokes or to think he's not crass or whatever. But I said, this is just my analytical opinion, right? I do news analysis. If you put Nick Fuentes, I said this like 4 or 5 years ago. If you put Nick Fuentes in a debate with Charlie Kirk, or you put Nick Fuentes in a debate with Ben Shapiro, I think he would make them both look dumb, which is why they both avoid that guy like the plague. They could tell you it's for this reason and that reason, and maybe it is. Maybe they really just don't like the guy and they don't want to give him attention. But I don't think Charlie Kirk or Ben Shapiro would look good in a debate with Nick. And I think they know that. And I think that they don't want people to see that because they don't want people to like him over them. So it's like a lot of these people, I think, in order to gatekeep their popularity, they have to debate like 20-year-old liberals, because it would be like me saying, I'm good at basketball, But instead of playing one-on-one against the pros, I'm going to go to a kindergarten and beat them at basketball. It's like, yeah, I don't know. As a grown man, you should be able to out-debate college kids, but maybe not. I mean, some college kids are smart. It's not like the ultimate test, though. Like the ultimate test would be Ben Shapiro debating Candace Owens or Nick or Tucker Carlson or, Dan Bilzerian or, Jeffrey Sachs or Dave Smith. Dave Smith, like pick one of them. That's a bigger challenge than debating college students over liberalism. So, I've always said that about him, where I think that they refuse to debate this guy, and he's gotten in so much trouble that anyone who's even affiliated with him gets in trouble by association. With all that being said, I think we're different people. We're different men. We have different ideas. We have different styles to us. Like everyone has to be true to themselves, and we're kind of like different archetypes. So it's like Nick does some things that I don't agree with and that I don't want to be associated with, but I'm not going to sit here and shit on him like he's a horrible guy. He deserves the First Amendment. He deserves people to debate and have conversations with him, and he shouldn't be blacklisted because they put this moral high ground like, he's so bad, but Jake Tapper deserves a plow. Why is Jake Tapper better than him? Why, like as like you take the craziest things that Nick have said, there's mainstream media journalists who've started wars, who've killed millions of people, like because they lied us into wars and we've lost trillions of dollars. Like how is that better? Because they're nicer? They're just more politically correct. So, it's like, I don't know. I've never met Nick and I don't really know much about him as like a person, but obviously like, I know people that have met him and like him, and then other people that I know that don't like him. But I guess it's just like I distance myself from most people. Like you don't see me getting drama issues. You don't see me getting fights. You don't see big, like there's always all this internal drama. Even within Nick and his own ranks, like you'll have people that are in Nick's crew, then they're beefing with Nick's crew, and Nick's beefing with them, and they're beefing with them. And then, you got like somebody at Daily Wire's beefing with this person, this girl's beefing with that person. I'm too old to get in fights with people. So it's like, I distance myself because I do what feels right to me. And it's like, I don't want to be involved in someone else's drama. I'm not in their organization. I'm not looking for a leader. I'm not looking for friends. I'm not looking for a club. I'm an athlete. If I'm going to join a club, it's going to be to play soccer or some sort of sport, or tennis. I don't need people to hang out with. So it's like, that's how I think about this stuff. I think Nick deserves a chance to debate these people. I think no one wants to debate him in Conservative Inc. because they don't want to open that Overton window, and they don't want people to see that some of the things that he says make sense to them. Like that's the last thing that Conservative Inc. wants, is like for boomers or someone to hear what this kid's saying and be like, oh no, that kind of makes sense. And then also I don't think Ben Shapiro and Charlie Kirk are good debaters. I don't. I think they avoid people that they think will make them look dumb, and they just debate college kids. So with all that being said, it's like, this is not a cosign of everything he said and done. And I'm not distancing myself out of cowardice. It's just like, as a grown man, and I believe this with anybody, with Candace Owens. And listen, I've gotten in trouble for talking to Candace from organizations just from being associated with her. I'm not going to apologize to talking to her, and I'm not going to let it stop me from talking to her because it won't. But it's like, I just want to let people know, this is what I think about everybody, including myself. I'm responsible for what I say, and I'm responsible for what I do. I don't appreciate people that try to make me responsible for what other people say. I'm not Nick. I'm not Candace. I'm not people that I've talked to, and I'm not people that I don't talk to. So people are going to do this anyway, but it's like, I'm tired of that sort of stuff where it's like, I everything I've ever said or done, I'm responsible for. I hate this guilt by association game that they're trying to play, which is like, if you talk to this person, you're blacklisted and you are responsible for everything they've ever said and done. Well, do those same standards apply to you? When you talk to somebody, when you talk to CNN, do you absolve everything they've ever done? When you have on a war hawk who's basically a war criminal, do you absolve all their problems? I don't blame you for everything they've ever done, but yet that's not the same standard. So, I'm a person who likes to keep my circle small, and I'm a person who chooses friends wisely. And I could balance everything while doing that. And here's what I will say about myself too, and why, although there are some people that don't like me and there are some people that talk about me, what you'll notice is not very many people do, because I treat others the way I want to be treated, and I'm a very fair person. If I won't talk to somebody, I'm not just going to shit on them and then blacklist them. So it's like I'm giving a fair analysis. I'm telling you what I really think. And that's why a lot of different people from all spectrums, not everyone likes me, and definitely certain people don't, but like, I guarantee you people would hear this and be like, yo, Anomaly's telling the truth. That's real. That's honest. That's fair. What a lot of people don't like is when somebody is called far right, they get blacklisted, they get censored, they get called names, but then they never get a platform to at least tell people their side of the story and be able to debate it. People don't like that. There's a difference between that and being like, I'm distancing myself from that, but I'm not going to be dishonest about it and just destroy it. Another thing that happens with is Andrew Tate. Like, I'll tell you this about Andrew Tate real quick. I think he's funny. I think he's interesting. I get why he's famous, and I think he's like a talented guy. Like, I get why he's so popular, but I've never been like a super Andrew Tate fan. Like, I'm not like an Andrew Tate fanatic, right? But I'm fair. I could see why he got so popular. With that being said, someone said in the comments, "Hi, I'm fat. Hi, fat guy. I'm not that fat, but could be skinnier." No, I'm just kidding. But with Andrew Tate, like, there's certain people on the right, and I've noticed a pattern. They're almost all ultra Zionists. They're almost all Ben Shapiro types. They're almost all neocons, and they're almost all, in my opinion, not the type of conservatives that I usually agree with. Those conservatives tend to like hate Andrew Tate with such a raging passion that they're like, anybody who likes Andrew Tate is complicit. Everyone's bad. Candace can't platform him. I hate PBD because PBD talked to him. Tucker Carlson talked to Andrew Tate. Everybody who's ever been laughed at an Andrew Tate joke is a rapist. Like, these people go nuts over him. I'm like, dude, I'm not trying to be like, play the fence, but like, I'm not like this Andrew Tate fanatic where I listen to everything he says. I join his club. He's a different, like, I don't really care what he says and does. Like, to me, he's a comedian, but also he purposely pisses people off to make money and get attention. Like, it's part of his business model. He knows what he's doing. He's purposely doing it. So if you really don't like Andrew Tate, it's like, don't give him so much attention. That's my opinion. I mean, you could do a video on him, but he thrives off the attention. So I've never really given him that much like public attention, because it's like, whatever, unless it's funny or so whether you like him or not. There's a lot of people that don't like Andrew Tate, what he did with the webcams. I understand it. I just don't understand attacking everybody who likes Andrew Tate. Like, you can hate him and think he's bad, post the information and make a convincing argument. It's always the people who make not that convincing of arguments who are just raging at. It's like, if you posted something convincing and honest enough for me to believe it, you wouldn't have to yell at everybody all the time. But it's like, you're posting a shitty video that doesn't make that much sense. That's not a bombshell like you think it is. You're trying to act like he doesn't deserve a fair trial, even though he keeps winning his trials. And then you're going to get mad at everybody who likes the guy. Like, it's just the ultra Zionist neocons, like, all of them hate Andrew Tate the most. The Dave Rubins, the Seth Dillons, the Ben Shapiros, these are the people that dislike Andrew Tate. And I'm wondering, is it because of all the bad things he does, or is it because of his foreign policy? I think it's because of his foreign policy. Yeah, there's other people that don't like him just off his past, but I just noticed that pattern where it's like, the way that they hate him just seems unnatural, and it seems like they start doing this like guilt by association. They're like, oh, people are going to platform Andrew Tate again. Everyone can platform whoever they want. They should just ask Andrew Tate harder questions. If Tate came on my show, I bet you people would be like, oh, that was a good interview. He actually asked him the tough questions. And most people don't ask him tough questions. I agree. But the people that hate Andrew Tate, similar to the people who hate Fuentes, they just act like nuts about it. I can't really put a finger on it. I was like, you could not like him and also act a little bit more normal. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've seen like women who are like, ooh, and it's like, relax. I'm not that big of a fan. It's like, if you don't agree with it, I'm like, it's not that I don't agree with you. I'm just like, you're not making good videos. Like, I watch what you're putting out. It's not that good. It's not that convincing. Your evidence is flimsy. I'm not saying he didn't do it, but I don't like, you're not convincing me. Oh, well, maybe if I get angry and start yelling at you and calling you names and accusing you of things that you're not, that you didn't do, maybe then you'll believe me about him. So it's like, you want to accuse other people of doing things they didn't do to make me believe that you have evidence that Andrew, like it's like you're proving that you're not trustworthy. You're proving that you're emotional. And that makes me think that you don't know what you're talking about. But that doesn't mean I like run, like I'm not one of these people that has to run, like sprint into a group just because it's not the other group. So the people that hate Andrew Tate are fascinating to me. They're like they're like rabid about it, but they don't ever really make much sense. Like, I'm aware of all of the worst things that he's ever done. I've seen all the compilations. Some of them are good, and he's definitely you know, I'm not trying to act like a perfect person, but he's definitely led in some cases like what some would call a sleazy lifestyle. You know, running a webcam business is sleazy. Doing what he does, like, you know, it's not the most ethical thing I've ever seen. So it's like, I get why people would disagree with all that, but there's a difference between doing that and then saying he did all this other stuff with flimsy evidence. Like, you know, that's how I see it, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, so I went into that just because I don't talk about that stuff much, but I'm not so isolated because I'm trying to be a contrarian. I'm not like a group think person. I'm very good at not like, well, if it's not left, it's got to be right. Well, if I either hate Andrew Tate or I'm obsessed with Andrew Tate, like a wise person can see both sides and see the flaws in both, you know, and a very wise person can see the flaws in themselves and, you know, judge and treat others the way they want to be treated. So I feel like the internet is the loudest people are the most annoying people. And I'm in a good place now where I'm just like, I'm not taking anything too personally. I'm letting the crazies fight with each other. And I'm just trying to do my own thing and stay out of it for the most part, because it's just like, I don't know. I'm not trying to be in an argument on Twitter every day with Seth Dillon and like James Lindsay. Like James Lindsay's like, it's like, dude, James Lindsay is such an unimpressive, sloppy guy. Not only will he not debate me, I asked him to debate me and he blocked me, so he would get destroyed in a debate with me. But in general, it's like, he's just like a loser. Like, this world is beautiful. The sun's out today. God is great. There's so many things I could do with my life, with my career. Why would I want to sit in a weirdo loop with like James Lindsay and people who hate James Lindsay, who are also kind of weird too? It's like, these are not my people. This is not my tribe. This is not what God put me on this earth to do, to just waste hours on Twitter reading comments between two groups that are annoying to me. Like, I don't say this to be like a hipster. I just genuinely feel like I have better things to do. Someone said blocking me is cowardice. Blocking someone is not necessarily cowardice. I think there's rational reasons to block people. And I'm fine with it, but he was retweeting me and like getting ratioed by me. So in this context, it's not like he just blocked me because I was harassing him. I made logical sense. I ratioed him by like 20-1. He's retweeting me acting like a weirdo. And I just said, all right, James, like, I don't feel like arguing on Twitter all day. Let's have a conversation. I'll invite you on the podcast. Let's chat about it, since we don't agree, but it'd be an interesting conversation. Then he blocked me. So it's like, in that context, I think it was just kind of corny. And then there's other people that are in that camp that have blocked me when we've never even interacted. So it's like, this is what I will say. And once again, I'm not saying other groups are good. There's psychopaths on every side. There's psychopath anti-Israel critic, there's psychopath Trump supporters, there's psychopath liberals. Like, there's weirdos in every group. I'm not saying this is specific to this group, but what I notice about a lot of the mainstream people who are like ultra Zionist is they're so intolerant to anybody who slightly disagrees. Like, Jordan Satchel blocked me, and I like the guy, never said a mean thing to him, never disagreed with him, never argued with him. He would tweet things about Israel, and I'd be like, I respect that. I get that he's pro-Israel, and that's his foreign policy. Like, I really like the guy. Never had a bad interaction with him, only had great interactions. He blocked me, and I don't even know, like, years ago, just because he's so ultra Zionist and he's such a sycophant for that country that even someone that says anything that slightly disagrees with him, like, triggers him. And that's how they act. Like, even with like Piers Morgan, you say that they ever did one thing bad, they accuse you of blood libel. You know, you say that they should hold back a little bit, they freak out at you, they call you an anti-Semite. It's like, that's just how ultra Zionists act. Out of everybody, because there's crazies on all sides, and I'm not saying that there's not crazies against them, but it's like, out of everyone I've interacted with, of course liberals are nuts too, but when it comes to conservatives, like, there's lunatics on all sides and people that weird me out, but like they do, in the mainstream, they do have this specific brand of like, I won't debate you, I'll call you names, I'll accuse you of hate speech, I'll block you, I'll freak out, I'll call you a terrorist, but I won't have a conversation with you, and I'll spiral, and that makes me right because you're doing hate speech and you're woke. It's like, okay, if you say, like, I like to debate this stuff, I have a great time with it. I debated someone named Conservative Mama, who's on Twitter. She's a lovely lady, and she's very Zionist. You know, she was the only one that was willing to have a conversation with me about this and be like somewhat normal. So I was like, all right, you know, I see her takes on Twitter. I disagree with them, but I respect her and I like her. So let me have her on my show. So I had her on my show, and you know, I started talking about donor money, and she goes, what are you trying to say? And I was like, I'm saying that pro-Israel people donate hundreds of millions of dollars to Republican organizations and politicians, and it sways their opinion somewhat. And she goes, are you saying an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory? So it's like, when you're just on Twitter and you're talking to yourself and you're blocking everyone and you're just acting like a sycophant, it makes sense to be like, oh, that's hate speech, that's anti-Semitism, that's a conspiracy theory. And you tweet that out and you're like, haha, I beat that anti-Semite because I called him an anti-Semite. Like, and that makes sense among their own ilk. When you're face to face with me on a podcast and I say, let me explain what I'm talking about, and I do, and then she's like, oh, it's like, it doesn't actually make any sense. How is it is it an anti-pharmatic conspiracy theory to say that big pharma pays politicians and it leverages them? Is it anti-liberal conspiracy theory to say that George Soros funds politicians? Like, do Republicans not realize that they have big donors too? And some of the biggest donors in the Republican Party are pro-Israel, and they lobby the politicians. And even Elon Musk donates money. It's not anti-Elon Musk-emetic to say that he probably gets some more defense contracts out of it. So it's, you know, it's like, this is the reality of how things work in politics. So it's like, when I had a debate with her, if you go watch that debate, I was calm. I enjoy it because I like actually having someone to compete with me. I made her look like a fool. She made no sense whatsoever. She just cried hate speech and conspiracy theory. And then when I explained it, she like didn't know what to say. She looked like an idiot. But she learned nothing from the debate, and now she's on Twitter in the comment section still just being in ignoramus. And it's like, I have no hate or ill will towards her, but it's like, I enjoyed our hour-and-a-half conversation. It's well documented, and anyone could watch it to see what somebody that speaks the truth looks like versus someone that cries hate speech and conspiracy theory, because they can't understand the dynamic of how lobbying in politics works, and they can't fathom the fact that it's happening on our side, or perhaps they're not willing to face it because they are either agree with it or don't want to see it. So, like, I'll give you an example. If I was a pro-Israel Zionist sycophant and I wanted to convince people, I'm going to help them out here. I wouldn't scream constantly, they voted for this, everyone's complicit there because they voted for that. Because it doesn't make sense. The last election was over 15 years ago. It was a close election. And also, we have elections in America that we don't want. And it doesn't mean that our entire, nation should be genocided because somebody voted for Joe Biden. Like that, I don't believe that for any group of people anywhere. It's insane to me, actually. I feel like it's literally demonic. But I'm not going to say all, but most of the pro-Israel people, like, that's one of their best talking points that's consistent. And I'm like, it's not that I disagree that you have a right to feel that way, but like, you guys are so ignorant and so close-minded and so used to just calling everything a hate speech, blood libel, conspiracy theory that you actually think that that's a convincing argument. And every time you say that, and every time you publicly yell at people, more and more people are not agreeing with Israel. Like, if you look at the recent polls, everybody has majority turned even Republicans of every age group are now more skeptical or, critical of Israel, except for boomers over 50. Like they've literally lost the entire left, every age group, and every younger age group who's going to take over the country, except for boomers. So shouldn't you listen to what I'm saying and be like, hey, we should probably change what we're doing a little bit, because we do have lobbying money. We do have a lot of media on our side, yet we're somehow losing everybody. Like I'm telling you the reason why they're losing everybody. It's because their talking points are garbage. Like even in the era of there's people pushing propaganda, like their propaganda has to be the worst propaganda. And like there's left-wing propaganda, there's right-wing, there's left-wing propaganda that I despise, that I could look at and be like, that's pretty good, even though it's evil and wrong. BLM, race propaganda. It's horrible for our country. It's Marxist, it's communist, it's leftist. But for the effectiveness of the propaganda, it's masterful. The pro-Israel propaganda that's out is some of the worst propaganda I've ever literally seen in my life. Like their talking points are antiquated, and literally like they're not even like race liberal black propaganda. It's like confusing enough to be believable, where it's not true, but it's like they're good at being confusing with it, where you're like, I get why so many people fall for it, and I get why I fell for it when I was like in my teens. The pro-Israel propaganda, it's like everyone's Hamas, the babies are Hamas, they voted for Hamas. It's like the only people that believe this stuff are literally Fox News boomer brains that are like have Zionists rotting their skulls out. Every other age group is like, I'm trying to be on your side, but you're not making any sense. And then when I agree with you 98% of the time, but say, what do you think about just relaxing just a little bit? Or like, do you think you could kill less children? And then they call you a terrorist and they accuse you of blood libel. It's like, it's the worst propaganda I've ever seen in my life. It doesn't, but that's what happens when you're self-absorbed and you take no accountability and you refuse to like listen to other people. You get antiquated propaganda that even with billions of dollars behind it is losing to social media users with no money. It's like, I like, go watch my interview with conservative mama, wonderful lady. Go listen to everything I said. Go listen to what she said, and then be like, did any of that rub off on her? No, she's just playing the same games. Okay, but that group is getting smaller and smaller because it's like, you got to get better talking points. You got to think of better, more believable things than saying that 9-year-old kids with no affiliation with Hamas deserve to die. Nine doctors' kids that even pro-Israel Fox News reporters are saying has no affiliation with Hamas, they deserve to die because of an election that happened 20 years ago. But then you don't believe that applies to you because what if someone said, well, Joe Biden won and he's doing all this evil stuff, so the entire country is responsible for Joe Biden? And then you'll say, well, that election wasn't fair. Okay, but in the freest, greatest, biggest country in the world, or one of the most powerful countries in the world that you believe has a constitution or whatever, if we can't control our own elections, you think a country as small and fragile as Palestine has the most fair elections you've ever heard of? Like, it's so ignorant and dumb. I don't even think it's like 90 IQ propaganda. I think it's like 50 IQ propaganda, which then makes me believe like there's no way anyone's dumb enough to actually believe that. The boomer brain, it's ignorance, it's anger, and it's hate. You're fueled with ignorance, ego, anger, and hate. So you're blinded because it's like, you can't possibly be this dumb. Like, it's like caveman level stupid. It's like, what I'm trying to say is like, you don't have to abandon your opinions or your foreign policy. Just get a more believable talking point, because it's so bad that even dumb people aren't falling for it. I don't know. There's like 3 talking points going around and they're all very dumb. All right. Someone said, life is like a tunnel. You never know where you're going to go. Life is a tunnel. I'm going to dig it all night long. If you're going my way, the old dirt highway tunnel bros. Some people do have tunnels. There's tunnels out there. Someone said Israel installed Hamas on Palestine. Well, here's another thing too. I'm not going to say they installed them, but I mean, here's what I will. I mean, you could say that I'm not stopping you or censoring you, but it's mainstream news that Israel kind of wanted them to have the election when they last had the election, which was over a decade ago, and that's where Hamas won the election. Israel intervened or tried to intervene to force that election. So it's like there's evidence all over that they basically forced that election. You don't have to go to far right news you just have to read literally Israeli news. Israeli news does a better job of covering this than Fox News. Like, if you want to know more about Israel, you're better off reading Israeli news than listening to Zionist Republican media, because Zionist Republican media is more in the bag for Israel than Israel's even in for itself somehow. It's like, but you read Israeli news, there's mainstream articles saying that, I believe one here. Let me find the one headline, because it's like I don't want to like butcher it. I want to be. Let me look. Here's one from March 2025. The headline of Haaretz, it says Netanyahu knew Hamas diverted $4 million in Qatari funds to its military wing. Office says. Times of Israel 2023. This is on October 8th, 2023, literally a day after. It says, for years, Netanyahu propped up Hamas. Now it's blown up in our faces. So even Times of Israel admits that, he propped them up for years. There's plenty of, I'm missing a few that involve Qatar and Netanyahu and Hamas and stuff, but it's like, this is all over the media, and you could read the articles if you'd like, where they're like, he propped up Hamas, he helped them get elected, he helped them for years, he worked with Qatar for funds to go there. Like, it's all over the place. And here's the thing, I'm not going to make claims I can't claim, but it's like there's so much there. Charlie Kirk talked about it one time, and then he never talked about it again. But it's like, the same way I would love to see footage of Epstein stuff. It's like, how in the world did a paraglider get through your defense system? How did paragliders get through? And then let's just say they did get through. Who let the guard down for that long? How? You guys could stop missiles, but you couldn't stop a paraglider? And then you look into Israeli news even more, and they talk about the Hannibal Directive, where even Israeli news says that it's Israel's Hannibal Directive is something they have that says just blow it all up, because then, we don't want the enemy to have our hostages for negotiation tactics. We'd rather you just kill everybody in order to just like wipe the slate clean so they can't use that as leverage. I'm not making this stuff up. This is in Israeli news. This is on Wikipedia. You just have to Google Hannibal Directive or Hannibal Initiative. I forget which one it's called. This is all out there. So it's like the only people that don't know this are Zionists, Fox News, boomer brain Republicans, evangelicals over 50. Everyone else knows this. It's like, even if every talking point that every evangelical over 50 says is true, adding all of this information and evidence on top of that still reeks of some sort of corruption or some sort of like, this was allowed to happen in some sort of way. Like, all the evidence is pointing towards something nefarious, but the only group that ignores it is over 50 Republicans. And they're like, I don't hear and see any of that. Let's just wipe out all the kids because that's fine, because they're all Hamas, because they all voted for it. Like, it doesn't make any sense. So, years ago, 6 years ago, 5 years ago, I came to the conclusion through my research, through watching video journalism, etc., I came to the conclusion that Israel eventually was going to take Palestine land. When I used to watch PragerU videos and Dave Rubin, they always used to say, Israel just wants to defend itself. Israel just wants to defend itself. That's all they want to do. And I actually believed that at one point for a little bit. But then it's like, when I did more research, I'm like, okay, I'm not guilting Israel because they have a right to do what they want. I don't run the country. I don't run the Middle East. But, it came to all the evidence pointed towards they haven't just defended themselves. They've been slowly taking land for decades now, So I'm like, why would all these Zionists in the Republican Party lie about this? Like, even if they said to me, they're taking more land just a little bit here and there every now and then because it makes them safer, I would respect that more than them pretending like it's not happening. But once again, no offense, but all the Dave Rubin and Ben Shapiro types do is lie. All they do is lie and cry blood libel and anti-Semitism when you figure out that they're lying. And then they say that you can't say they ever exaggerate when they're constantly lying and exaggerating. It's like, okay, I'm on your side. I agree with you, but it's like they're not just existing. They're taking land. This is like years ago. I knew this 5 years ago. And then I started researching more and more about Greater Israel and this sort of stuff, not conspiracy theories, but evidence of people talking, saying what their plans were, just like with America and the liberal world order that they've talked about for 20 years. I'm like, okay, I've now come to the conclusion 4 or 5 years ago that they want either more of the land or all of the land. So I already knew that Israel wanted that land, right? You could say I was wrong. You could say I'm hateful or whatever, but I knew this 5 years ago. I'm like, they're going to, at one point, they're going to take either all of the land or more of the land. And then after October 7th happened and paragliders got through their missile defense systems and the Hannibal initiative or directive happened, according to Israeli news, but you're not allowed to talk about it. And after all the articles came out that Netanyahu propped up Hamas and this and that, it's like, now they have the reason to go kill everybody in Palestine. And that's what they seem like they're trying to do. Like, yeah, they're killing Hamas, but they're also killing children and doctors and everybody. But if you say they're doing that, it's blood libel, because in their eyes, they're not doing that. So if you say that they're doing that, or anyone says that they're doing that, it's the worst blood libel they've ever heard. And you're an anti-Semite, and anti-Semitism has been around thousands of years, since the times of Jesus, and Jesus's disciples were anti-Semitic, and you're anti-Semitic too, and it's anti-Semitism. So it's like, okay, it's like once they got the green light to just go nuts on Gaza, they did. And it's like, yeah, they're going after terrorists. Yeah, I'm sure they hide in some tunnels, and yeah, I'm sure they use some people as human shields, but that doesn't mean that that's all they're doing. They're also doing a lot of messed up stuff. But I could say America's military is doing messed up stuff. I could say Palestine's doing messed up stuff. I could say Ukraine's doing messed up stuff, but I can't say Israel's doing messed up stuff, because they're the most moral military in the world, and they'd never do any of that, and they'd never do this, and they never do that. And I've come to the conclusion that I'm not going to say like there's not bad countries out there and like Yemen's great and all that. Everyone does messed up stuff, but the news will tell me that Ukraine and Israel are like the two most moral militaries. And the more I look at it, it's like, no, I do not believe that they're the most moral militaries. I'm sorry. I believe that they purposely commit war crimes quite often, and they know that they have the press on their side, or at least, you know, the politicians, where they'll just keep funding them anyway. So it's like, yeah, I mean, that's what we're dealing with now. And at first, I'm going to be honest, when the war first broke out in the first year, I didn't think it was a genocide. I think people throw that word out there a lot, and I try to be very careful with my words. So I was like, I don't think it's a genocide. They're at war. Civilians are dying. It's getting ugly. I don't believe it's a genocide. Once I listen to people, I listen to Zionists in America. I listen to people that are pro-Israel. I listen to the Israeli politicians, and I hear what they're willing to do, and I hear what they think, and I hear what they think about all the Palestinian people and not just Hamas. I'm like, no, it definitely is a genocide now, because they're openly just like, no matter how many people we kill, no matter how many women we kill, no matter how many children we kill, no matter who they're affiliated with, we're still going to just say it's Hamas. We're still going to say it's blood libel and anti-Semitism. So for the first year of this war, after October 7th, I did not think it was genocide. I thought people were exaggerating and lying. And now that I have more evidence of what they're doing and how little they're willing to admit that they're doing it, it's like, yeah, no, I do think that they're trying to wipe out everything. I think that they have a strategy for it. And, you know, if you look into Amalek, and there's a lot of calls to wipe out Amalek completely, like a biblical just wiping out the entire race or the entire group, you'll find more evidence of that, where it's like this, they think it's some sort of like, you know, you're the enemy and they want to wipe. Like, it's not like, oh, they used the kid as a human shield by mistake and we killed him by mistake. That's what they say they're doing, and that's what people who watch Fox News think that they're doing. It's possible. I'll say that it's possible. But what I think that they're doing is they're purposely doing it because they're trying to wipe out the next generation. Like, they're trying to wipe out the issue completely. And in a lot of their eyes, the issue is Amalek. And, you know, you could talk to some Christian evangelicals who will say, they'll agree with that. And they'll be like, yeah, you know, the Palestinians are evil. I'm fine with them genociding them because I want to wipe them out completely too. And they think that the Palestinians are the only Amalek that they look at. But you could find mainstream news reports, Israeli news reports, and I'm not saying everybody, because just like in any religion, in Judaism and in non-religious Jewishness of Israel, because not everybody's religious there, you have a bunch of people with different opinions. A lot of people don't like Netanyahu. A lot of people are growing tired of what's going on. And there's different sects of Judaism that have different opinions. I'm not saying everybody. But what I will say is, if you do your research and you look at who else they think is Amalek, there's other evidence. They think Armenian Christians are Amalek, some rabbis. Some of them think Christians are. So it's like Christians think that their goal is just to wipe out the Palestinians, and then that's just where they're going to stop, and that's all they really think. Some people, sure. But, if they think you're Amalek, then you might be shocked to realize one day that actually, you're closer to a Palestinian in their eyes than you are one of them. And once again, I'm not saying everybody. I'm not saying that's the goal of Israel completely, but there are some rabbis that openly state who they think Amalek is, and it's not just Palestinians. So this is not my opinion. This has been published in articles in Israel. This has been quoted by rabbis. Everybody gets it except for over 50 boomers. And one said on Facebook, she's like, "You've been a victim of propaganda." There's nothing I said that you can disprove here, because you don't know. Like, you're an antiquated, ignorant being that is bombarded with decades of propaganda, has no logical talking points to disprove what I'm saying. So you're just going to short circuit like a MacBook that's from the 1970s, because you can't keep up. So nothing you could say, you have no points to make with what I just said, because you just don't want to believe what I just said, because you can't handle it, because it would shatter your entire ego and your entire probably personality for the last 30 years. Someone said Christians don't think that at all. Once again, Christians is a group where not everyone thinks the same thing. A lot of Christians think a lot of things, but the evangelical Zionist Schofield footnote reading Christians who believe that they're attached at the hip at Israel and that they're going to do all this stuff, and then this is the end times and it's really going to be now. I don't know what these people are thinking, because I don't think these people are thinking, to be honest, in my opinion, because on one hand, you have Christians who will say, Israel's our greatest ally. We're never supposed to question them. We're just supposed to help them for the end times. But then it's like, what happens actually in the end times? In the end times, Jewish people that don't convert to Christ are not saved. Like, that's what Christians believe. So it's like Christians have this unholy alliance where they're like, you're our greatest ally, except we think you're going to hell because you don't believe in Christ. And Israelis know this about Christians. So it's like, they're like, how are you such a great ally if you think they're literally going to go to hell and not make it to the afterlife, when most of them have no desire to adopt your religion? In fact, a lot of them don't like Christ, and a lot of them, have a holy text that says he's boiling in hot excrement for eternity. And also, it's like, you listen to people like Ben Shapiro, he's not a fan of Christ. And I'm not going to speak for all people, but a lot of people in Judaism, not all, but I've listened to enough rabbis and Ben Shapiro talk to know that they think this. It's like Jesus was, he says that Jesus was like someone who got put down for his troubles. That's what Ben says, because they view Jesus as a pest. Not all, but many, because Jesus was a Jew who warned the Gentiles of the corruption of people at the time. He was a Jew who said that everyone gets God's blessings, not just the chosen ones. And Ben Shapiro doesn't believe that. Ben Shapiro hates that. And Ben Shapiro and a lot of people like Ben Shapiro see Jesus as the beginning of anti-Semitism, because his followers were anti-Semitic for essentially questioning the Jewish establishment at the time. So in your head, you're these great allies where you agree on everything. And in a lot of these people's heads, you're not their great ally. They don't like your religion. They don't believe that your Lord is their Lord. And in fact, they see his disciples as the origins of anti-Semitism. And you could say whatever you want about me, but it's true. Listen to any debate where Candace is debating a rabbi and he says 2,000 years ago, Jesus' disciples and anti-Semitic because this and that. It's not a rocket science. If they say over 2,000 years ago, that's when anti-Semitism started. It was the disciples of Christ and the people who follow Christ were considered the original anti-Semites because they defied the Jewish establishment at the time, just like Christ did. So do you think they love Jesus Christ like you do? No. In the Talmud, it says he's boiling in hot excrement. And the Talmud is not necessarily the word of God to them because it's massive. And I know it's a bunch of rabbis debating. So I'm not saying every person who believes in Judaism believes that, because it's not true. But what I am saying is like, it's like, what, at what point do you realize that this is not working out for you? You know what I'm saying? Like you need a special law in your country that says that you can't talk about their country. You need special laws in their country that say that you need to do a carve out for a religion that has a book that says that your God is boiling in hot excrement for eternity, which is poop, and they need special speech laws in America, and people can't question them as a group, and people can't question Israel. That's what's going to be good for you. Like evangelical Zionist Schofield footnote reading boomers are literally like dumber than liberals. Like they're like almost dumber and worse than liberals, because liberals are destroying the country because they hate the country and they hate themselves and they're like, depressed. And Zionist boomers actually like the country and like have joy in life. And they're doing the same thing to the country, but they are like completely oblivious of it. So in many ways, they're just as bad or worse than liberals, because I think liberals are conscious of what they're doing to the country. And it's the same way as someone like, getting 1,000 tattoos and cutting themselves because they're depressed. It's like liberals, they're like raging out on the system because they hate their parents and they want to live in filth and shitty cities that there's crime everywhere because they're like depressed. Like boomers that are Christians are not that self-hating. They're just really, really brainwashed into sabotaging their own country, their own group, and their own religion. They just don't realize it. But it is what it is. I'm not going to argue with people. Everyone's got the right to believe what they want. Someone said, so well read. I love hearing someone talks who's well educated. I know a lot, and I know more than I say sometimes. It's just I pick and choose when I talk about it. But the reason I know so much is because despite being confident, and maybe people think I'm cocky or whatever, I'm very humble when it comes to my ego. And it's like I know what I don't know, and I'm impressed by different things, and I love learning. Like I'm not one of these people that's like, I know everything. I'm trying to study for Jeopardy. I know, like everyone I talk to, like they'll be like, dude, you're so good at trivia. I suck. I'm not nearly good enough. They're like, dude, I'm not stupid. I'm not like, I could be on Jeopardy. I watch Jeopardy almost every day and I don't do good enough to be on. I want to be so good that I know almost every question. Then I'll go try out for Jeopardy. Until then, I'm studying. I'm very self-aware. I know a lot, I don't know a lot, but I've learned so much over the last 7 years because I'm always listening to both sides. I'm always listening to people, and I'm considering all these things. The reason so many people are ignorant is because they never learn anything new, is because they think they know it all. So they're on these antiquated talking points because they just sit and watch people who agree with them all day say the same things that they know. So it's like I've learned so much because I do read, I do listen, and I've heard the pro-Zionist Christian side 1,000 times, and I've listened to people. I've a dinner with Christian families that talk about it the entire dinner. I have Jewish friends who believe in it. I have Jewish friends who don't believe in it. Like I'm a very well-cultured person. Like I have all sorts of friends that believe different things, etc. So it's like I've heard the Zionist angle of like why this is what the Bible says my whole life. And then, when I heard the other side, I didn't shut it down saying, I know everything. I'm the smartest. This is what my parents told me. My pastor told me I'm for sure. I'm like, okay, I'm listening. I watched a documentary on it. You know what I'm saying? I heard and like, once I heard certain talking points from the other side, and then I brought them to my friends who disagree, it's like most of my friends were like, oh no, that makes more sense. Or they like melted down and had nothing to add to the conversation. So it's like, that's how you know when something's right, when you can hear two things that sound pretty believable. And it's like one side is confident in what they're saying and provides proof, and the other argument doesn't destroy their argument. And then the other side, this argument destroys their argument, and they literally have nothing to tell you except for anger and like, just like, words that say you're being hateful and hate speech when you're not. It's like, that's how you know that it's wrong. So like I said, when I bring something to someone like a conservative mama, and the only thing she could say is, that's an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. Let's break down linguistics. I explain exactly what I mean without being hateful, without blaming one group, just saying this is how politics work. Lots of people do it. Lots of industries do it, right? Multiple countries do it. I'm not acting like this is exclusive to one race or one religion. Like I'm just talking how politics work. It happens on the left. It happens on the right. It happens with pharmaceuticals. It happens with the military industrial complex, right? And I'm like, but this is happening with this topic. And the best you could say to me is that's an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. What that means is anti-Semitic means you're accusing me of being hateful because you have no argument that says anything else. So you're accusing me of hate speech, right? And then you're accusing me of a conspiracy theory, which doesn't mean anything. A conspiracy is a group of people who commit a crime together, and a theory is a theory. If my theory has evidence and I'm showing you all the evidence and you're saying you're hateful and that's a theory, but you literally have nothing to add to why that theory is not true, then you don't know what you're talking about. That's like me saying, it's a conspiracy theory to say that the election was stolen. Yes, it is a conspiracy theory, but like what proof do you have to say that it wasn't? Like what's your argument when they bring up all this evidence? There's a way to win the argument, but it's not by calling something a conspiracy theory. It's like, oh, you're a right winger who believes that, white people are being attacked. Well, that's just a racist conspiracy theory. It's like, maybe, but what does that mean? Like what I could say that's a left-wing conspiracy theory. Like there's no substance to that. So that's how intelligent people can watch a debate or something and be like, okay, he made total sense. She spiraled like a liberal. She said it was hate speech. She called it a conspiracy theory, which is hypocritical because she believes a lot of conspiracy theories, and that's what the left does to her. And there's no substance there. So it's like, this is how you can wade through opinions and facts, and also just people that know what they're talking about and people that are so biased and so blinded that they're not really making any sense. That's how I at least go through it. That's like when Dan Bilzerian was talking to Piers Morgan the first time or the second time. Like I'm not co-signing everything that Dan said, but when Dan would say this, and this, like he'd bring up the Talmud, he'd bring up this, like really edgy things that me personally, I'm not trying to be nitpicky, but it's like I don't think I would sit there and just agree with everything that Dan said if I were interviewing him. Like I would have some counters to it. But the thing is, like, Dan says something that I believe is like, okay, that's what he said. And then what does Piers Morgan say back to him? He says, you sound like a blank. You sound hateful. You sound anti-Semitic. That's anti-Semitism. Like you're not beating his argument by crying hate speech and saying he sounds like a character from history. Like you sound like a liberal. You sound like oh, I like Donald Trump because he's going to build the border. And I'm like, you sound like a Nazi. You sound like a racist. You sound like a white supremacist. And you sound like Willy Wonka from the Chocolate Factory. You sound like Karl Marx. You sound like Al Sharpton. You sound like Al Pacino. You sound like Mao Zedong. You sound like Stalin. You sound like Zelensky. Like I could say you sound like someone. You could say I sound like someone. But what are we even talking? Like, that's a very liberal, very dishonest talking point to be like, you sound like Mao Zedong. Okay. No, but and that's what Piers Morgan did that whole debate. So it's like, that's why I think he lost the debate. It's not necessarily because everything Dan says is accurate and true. It's just like, if he says something in which is mostly true or at least debatable, but has a premise of being like real, even if you're mad about it, and then your response is like, you're hateful and you're racist, and that's all I could say. It's like, well, you just got destroyed in that debate, because it's like, you're like anomaly. What do you think about Trump closing the border and Trump closing, doing a ban on immigration, and Trump bringing over white South Africans, and Trump, you know what I'm saying, like arresting illegals? What's your opinion about that? It's racist. It's sexist. It's anti-Semitic. It's a conspiracy theory. It's anti-vaxxer, and it's a white replacement conspiracy theory that Rachel Matt, like, you just said a bunch. You're like Jordan Peterson. You're saying a bunch of words that just mean you're hateful. And this is where people usually play defense, and they're like, and then they explain why they're not hateful. I'll just reverse it. Like, you could say, you sound like this. You sound like Stalin. You sound like Mao Zedong. You sound like that. You sound like World War II. You sound like Stephen Colbert. You sound like Jimmy Kimmel. You sound like Rachel Matt. Like, I could play that game too. I could say you sound like somebody, and you could say I sound like somebody, But why don't we both just listen to what we're saying and then debate the premise of what we're saying? No? Doesn't that make more sense? Of course. Appreciate you guys. God bless you. God bless your family. God bless America. God bless the world. Thanks for hanging out for a couple hours. If you like shorter videos, I understand. If you don't, I also understand. But I'm doing a lot of shorter, like, I don't know if I'd call it movie quality, but pretty much movie quality, high quality, studio quality videos. So I've done a report on Jordan Peterson being a clown. I did one on Trump and Putin, and I have a lot more to do. So I'm doing a lot more content this year, and it's like sometimes I'll go live with this camera. Eventually, I'll probably use like an actual camera for this too. But other times, I do have a show that's 25 minutes, 12 minutes. If you like the short ones, I think they're very high quality. I think it's it's top tier stuff. So check out my YouTube channel or on Facebook and go through the videos because I got some good ones this week that a lot of people haven't seen. Thanks for hanging out. Appreciate you. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'll be back soon, and I'm very grateful to still be out here, still doing it. So I'll be back soon.
Hey, what's going on, my friends? Just a few ways to stay in touch and support if you'd like to. The first way is dreamrare.com. We have blue beanies, black beanies, pink hats, other colored hats, freedom versus tyranny shirts, stay blessed long sleeve, God is great long sleeve, and lots of more cool items coming soon. Dreamrare.com. Check out the shop to support. Everything's made in the United States. Handpicked by me. Patreon.com/raretalk for $5 a month. You can help support me, support the show. If you haven't noticed, unlike other channels, I don't work with very many sponsors, sometimes none at all. And part of the way I'm able to do that is with the dreamrare.com shop and patreon.com/raretalk. So thank you guys for keeping this show free, unimpeded, uninterrupted. I'm forever grateful. My free email list is stayintouchwithme.com. So check the links below in the description or just type in on any browser, stayintouchwithme.com, all one word. You'll find my email list, put it in there, and it's the least annoying email list you'll ever be on. I barely use it because I don't like getting emailed every day or every week. It's annoying. So I don't do it. Stayintouchwithme.com. It helps me take back some power away from big tech. Telegram, t.me/dreamrarechat or @dreamrarechat. Due to censorship, I post all my live stream and videos there. Sometimes I have some bonus content, and I try to give people a heads up when Facebook or YouTube won't. DreamRareChat at Telegram. My Instagram is @DreamRare. Thanks for everybody following there for shorter content. And DreamRareLinks.com, that's DreamRareLinks.com, has all my stuff. My podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, my music on Spotify and Apple, my Rumble page, my BitChute and Gab page. All my links are found at DreamRareLinks.com. Thanks for watching, folks. God bless you. You already know I'll be back.